All right, what's going on, everybody? It is another Tuesday night, which means it's time for another episode of the Big Three podcast. And it's three of us right now. Jordan had a big graduation day. We'll see if he comes on or not. But gotta shout out to him. Big moment in your life to graduate from college. So, congrats,
Enjoy it.
Jordan.
Yep, congrats.
And now because of that, we're probably gonna talk all Lakers and Ravens, and you can't do anything about it if you're not on here. So. But look, there's a lot of things that's been going on. We got a lot to get into. You got NBA playoffs. Got Carmelo Anthony who retired. Just a lot going on. Weird sports year. A lot of crazy stuff going on. So we'll get into all that. But before we do, Jake, Dylan, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Like another great week. Some really great sports stuff going on. Most likely going to have 2 sweeps in the conference finals, which has never happened before. And that's a bummer. We talked last week about how we both want our conference finals to go at least 6 games. But the good news is it gives us a lot to talk about as sports fans based on just how they've turned out. But overall, can't complain. Excited for the show.
All right. Dylan?
Yeah, same here. Overall, I agree with what Jake said. Like, it's not cool seeing possibly 2 sweeps in conference finals. That's where you want like the 7-game hard fought series. But overall, it's good. I'm excited. That gives us definitely a lot to talk about. Just overall, very unexpected. Not only is it just 2 sweeps in the conference finals. The Heat being an 8 seed and going to the finals will be the second time that's ever happened. So that's going to be a big thing for them, especially if they get it done in a sweep as well, which will be never have been done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, we'll get into the breakdown of Nuggets and all that later on. Oh, we got Con Man in the building.
What's up, Con Man?
So, fellas, coming in the building, enjoy the show, sharing this. How's my guy? Kind of need to come on my show. We'll make something happen, Con Man, for sure. But appreciate you tuning in. And with the Big Three, we love chat interaction. So you guys have your comments or questions, throw them down in the chat, and we'll definitely get to all of that. But before we get into all the NBA, I think there's a little bit we could talk about with the NFL because we are getting closer and closer to the season starting up. I think basically every team is in their OTAs or like little training camp and all that.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, we saw a lot of
everyone should be there.
Right. Yeah, there's a few guys who I think missed the first day, but I think all the big names at least are accounted for. I was seeing all the coverage with Aaron Rodgers at Jets camp. We already know that that's going to be a big deal all year. I think Lamar showed up today, so we're almost there. But
it's good though. This has been like a very quiet OTA season. Normally, you get a lot of people holding out. This one, it's kind of just been like, no, everyone's just kind of going, and it's like that's good,
Yeah.
Really, it seems like any contract dispute has kind of just got solved lately. It's just like, okay, we'll just trade you, or we'll just give you a lot of money. So.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. But we also did get some news from the NFL as well. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but they're changing the kickoff to, I guess, the XFL way, or actually college as well, for 1 year just to try it out. If you fair catch within the 25-yard line, it'll automatically go out to the 25. Doesn't have to be in the end zone. You guys like that change? You think it'll stick around, or you think it's like one and done?
I think it'd probably say player safety protocol. And this is exactly why it can keep players safe. It gives them a bigger window, just in case. It won't change much either because, in that area, if they still fumble it or whatever, live ball, it's not like anything else will change. going out to the 25 is not that big of a deal. Sometimes the kickers, I mean, it could also honestly help kickers out in a sense too. You mess up a kick, never know, they could fair catch it. I think it's just overall it's going to be safer for players, and that's probably a reason they'll keep it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll stick, and it's definitely a player safety point of view. The kickoffs are just inherently dangerous.
Mhm.
It is a bit of a bummer because there can be some strategy, especially if you're going to late fourth quarter games, of trying to pin people back a little further, not get them right to the 25. So you do lose a little bit of strategy, but overall, this is going to stick because it's player safety, and the NFL has seemingly been trying to take away the dangers of kickoff returns. Along with that, we do lose a little bit of the excitement as well, which could be a bummer, but I don't think it's going to, we're not going to notice it all that much as far as the action we're going to miss on Sundays.
Okay.
The people who are going to take it back are going to take it back.
Right.
If they're going to want a kick return, they're going to take the kick return.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. A lot of kick returners have, I guess, a bit of an ego on them where they feel like balls in their hands, they're going to make a play with it. I don't think that mentality is going to change necessarily.
And it could open up more strategy as well too. Someone thinks you're going to fair catch it because it's just on the 25, and they end up taking it. So I mean, it creates just a different strategy piece when you think about it.
Yeah. So looking at the college version of it, and then the XFL had it where like both teams were like lined up 5 yards apart, couldn't move until the kick or whatever, and then or until the receiver caught it, and then they would kind of go and try to tackle them that way. Would you prefer that over this college way, or is it fine either way for you?
I'd like to see how this one is. I mean, I don't hate the concept of this one. It's not anything that sounds too outrageous, so it's not anything that I think will be too wild. I mean, I like it. I get what it's aiming for. So I mean, I like this way. If they do the college way too and decided that's fine, I mean, I like the college way. But this one, I'm fine with this one. Really, just both of them are intriguing.
Yeah, again, like kickoffs, we've kind of grown accustomed to not having as much action with them over the last decade, and I'm fine with it just going here, see how it plays out, see what we like and what we don't like, and next year, if this thing turns out to be a dud, we can try it out that way. But I'm fine with where we're at currently.
Okay. Then I believe the league also made some other news with the Thursday night football schedule. The owners agreed that they'll flex out. I think it starts with week 13. Thursday night football
13
games
through 17.
Yes, Thursday night games are now part of the whole flex package. I'm sure Amazon's probably loving that because if they have a few bad games here or there, at least at the end of the year they'll be like, we should get games that matter in terms of playoff positioning. So at least you could kind of save a couple of bad weeks with the end of the season. So I'm assuming you guys think that's a great move by the owners there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like Thursday night football, so
yeah. So
also I don't like game planning and strategizing these weeks, and then it's like actually you're now playing like 3-4 days earlier now, so prepare for that. I don't know. I would like if they just got rid of Thursday night football and maybe did it like a Monday night way. Like I've always been saying, have 2 Monday night games. You can put them on 2 primetime slots. One after each other. People would love that. Just nobody likes Mondays, but coming home after a hard work day and watch 2 straight football games, that'd be pretty cool. I don't like Thursday night football, but overall, it is what it is. Seattle might get that spot going against Dallas in like week 15, so I guess that's cool. Just gives me another primetime game to watch.
Yeah, I mean, from a business perspective, this is really smart because Thursday night football has historically, like we've said before, historically it's had bad football games. It's hard to get people to want to watch, especially with the later start time. Longer into the week, people are already tired. So it makes sense from a business perspective. But like Dylan, I don't love Thursday night football. You generally don't get the quality games that you do on a Sunday night game. I don't. So Thursday night, it messes with your schedule. It's inherently more dangerous for the players. And then again, it can screw up your timing. If you're trying to figure practices, injury returns, you're making a playoff push, and all of a sudden you have to play 2 games in 4 or 5 days, that's really, really tough. Now you do get the longer break after, but I don't like that. And also too, if you're a fan and like there's a big game you want to go to, you have to travel to, That
Mhm.
messes up all of your travel, your hotel, your book, all of that stuff. It's kind of why I always assumed Monday Night Football never did any flex games, was because you're changing the date altogether. So I was surprised that they did it from that point of view. Again, business wise, which is what the NFL wants to do, I'm not surprised they did this. But from my personal point of view, I would just rather keep it the way it is and then just try and reduce the number of Thursday night games. Because, like Dylan said, I'm not the biggest fan. And if I could get two Monday night games, one that starts a little earlier on the East Coast for people that are out here, so we're not having to stay up till midnight, and then you have one a little later. For me, that'd be the great way. I'm watching, 2 straight days of football, and instead of having to get into this new habit of Thursday night
Mhm.
football.
Like even then, you can make like an early game. Like, oh no, you have the Colts and the Titans play at like that early, like 4, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock window, and then like you gotta have like a primetime game of like boom, Chiefs versus like like the Bills or whatever you want to have at
Right.
prime time. You can make it like really interesting. The little teams would get their little prime time slot.
Mhm.
Less injuries. I mean, if the NFL is all about player like safety protocol, I all the signs show that Thursday night football is not great, and the players are telling them it's not great. I don't know why they continue to
Right.
try to make it a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
It's money.
yeah, but
Exactly.
I think there is a workaround it because oddly enough, Dylan, the point you brought up about two Monday games, I think I brought this up on like Jordan's show or something. I thought I found it interesting that they're toying with two Monday games a few weeks this
Yep.
year
Yep.
because what I think could happen is if those games do well, the NFL could turn Thursday night's package into just a second Monday night game. You give Amazon one of the Monday night
Well,
games and the
yeah,
other one's on
exactly.
ESPN. I think you kind of make everybody happy. And that's what I think the experiment is. And hopefully it goes well enough that we, a couple of years down the line, maybe Thursday night football isn't a thing. Because, yeah, if the players don't like it, then what's the point of keeping it?
Yeah, I've never heard an NFL player go on a talk show or in an interview say that they love Thursday night games.
Right.
Like, they say anything, they say that they hate it, and I'm with them. I want the players to be safe, and I want my football. I'd rather have a little more quality than the quantity as far as that goes.
Exactly. I'm trying to see. Oh, I think we also got the guess confirmation of the sale of the Commanders. So I guess
Yeah,
it's official that good old Mr. Snyder is no longer an owner. So Commanders fans, you should be doing backflips. Now, of course, you got to wonder how the team's going to do on the field, but at least you can worry. I mean, at least you don't have to worry about Dan Snyder looming over the
Yeah.
franchise anymore.
I think if you're Commanders fans, like, if you have a rough season this season, you're okay with it knowing that Snyder's probably gone. You're just
Right.
like, we got to give this guy time. See how he is. And, as long as he doesn't make the same mistakes or is a horrible owner or makes, just bad decisions overall, and he actually cares about the team's culture and, like, brings a good atmosphere in there. Like, I feel like Commanders fans will get behind it, and they'll have winning football. They have a good roster. I think they'll be fine. They'll be fine. They're just happy Snyder's gone.
yep. I can agree. As someone who lives in the market for the Commanders, every Commanders fan I've talked to is doing backflips. Like Kyle said, they're thrilled, they're ecstatic because now this toxic person that's been deteriorating the leadership and the culture of the team is gone. It's a fresh start. They could win 4 games and they'd be happy because they have a new culture, a new owner, and they're rebuilding to something, and they could support the team. They don't have to feel guilty
Yeah.
going to games. I've had, the Commanders uh, ticket office call me like, "Hey, do you want tickets?" And I will always like, "No, I don't. I can't support Dan Snyder." Now it's like, yeah, I'll go to a couple of games because it's just up the road. So much good's going to come from this. They're going to get a new stadium. And so, Commanders fans, I said it, I think, last week on the pod, throw a Super Bowl parade in downtown DC to really give the big middle finger to Snyder, to really show how we really feel about him. I'd go to that parade. I'd make the drive and the commute to go be a part of that because this is the best thing that's happened to him since the turn of the century. If you think like 23 years, this is the best thing that's happened to him. So you got to celebrate it.
Okay.
Yeah, they have a bright future. I mean, you still have Bieniemy like in your helm, probably to be ready to take over that roster. Even if you have a bad year this year, you could fall into Caleb Williams. fall into Drake May. I mean, imagine giving Eric Bieniemy Caleb Williams with a brand new owner who isn't Dan Snyder. I mean, I think Commanders fans would, you know, be happy with that golden ticket right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, okay, so now kind of going away from owners meeting and all that kind of stuff. Big Ben made some news. I mean, get your thoughts in a second here, whether or not it's a big deal or not. But basically, Big Ben, had his little truth moment and told everybody that he did not want Kenny Pickett to succeed initially because I guess he didn't want it to turn into Big Ben who and all this kind of stuff. Whatever. I guess first question is, do you have an issue with Big Ben not necessarily rooting for Kenny Pickett in the beginning?
No, I mean, it's different if it would still be the same now, or this is like new news and like he still has the same sort of feelings. But we know the relationship now is Big Ben like mentors him. He wants like the best for Kenny Pickett, and I think like he just had a sour note. You left a legacy there, and Ben Roethlisberger kind of didn't really probably retire on the way he wanted to, and it kind of just seemed like he was an afterthought because it did seem like he overstayed his welcome. There was rumblings for years. Will he retire? Will he go somewhere else? Should Pittsburgh move on? And then like when he retired, like it came out like he was forced out and he didn't actually want to retire and different things like that. So, when they spend a first round pick on a quarterback, he probably made him feel a little sour. He probably didn't want his legacy to be tarnished. You could call it petty. You could call it whatever you want. And I mean, overall, I just think when you don't get to leave off on the terms that you want, and they get a new shiny quarterback to kind of replace it and have big hopes and aspirations for him, and you kind of seem like an afterthought. Probably was a little sour about it, but now he's a mentor for him and wants the best for him. So, I mean, I think it is what it is. People can probably be a little upset about it, but at least he kind of looked at it like, I need to be older. Like, I need to be a mentor. Like this organization is like what I've worked for my whole life, and they're probably asking me to mentor this quarterback, and I need to do my best and do that. So I think he grew up. He probably just sour at first.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the only thing that makes it okay is the fact that they've cleared things up and like patched things up. And he said, as far as I'm concerned, as far as what I remember, he said, like, initially I didn't want you to succeed, but I'm sorry. Like, there was kind of he was being honest about it. So I can't, fault him too much for that. But it's still like, just don't say it. Like, just keep your mouth shut, Ben. Like, we get it that it shows a little fragility with him, that he definitely still has an ego, because we can all admit that the Big Ben the last couple of years for the Steelers was not good. He had a noodle arm, and he just wasn't the same person. He wasn't what we grew up with, especially like Kyle and I when we were younger, watch him in the mid 2000s, just being a fantastic quarterback. So I don't like that part of it. Also, Big Ben doesn't exactly have the best character dating back for his whole career, so that kind of hurts him a little bit. But now that they patched things up, I'm not too upset about it. But yeah, just don't say anything. I get he's trying to be honest to probably get some attention, but just don't say anything, because I really like Kenny Pickett. His numbers may not scream to you, but if you watch him, I think he's going to be really, really good. And the Steelers aren't going to be in quarterback hell like a lot of other franchises are when their big guy moves on and retires.
Right.
Yeah, when you say it like that, I do kind of agree. Like, he should have just kind of kept his mouth a little shut. Like, I mean, obviously, like, that kind of persona and image wasn't necessarily out there. Like, I didn't necessarily think that's what Ben Roethlisberger wanted, but now that he said that, I'm like, oh, well, that kind of says a little bit more about you. But if he stayed quiet and just stayed in that mentor role, probably looked like the bigger person there. But now it kind of looks like you were a little petty, Ben. It's kind of on you.
Yeah, and it's like he says that, and you're kind of like, oh, now that I think about it, that doesn't surprise me that you'd feel that way. Whereas with other quarterbacks that have retired and moved on, we wouldn't have that thought if they were to say it. But that's just part of Big Ben. And again, you said a great Kyle, where I think it was Kyle that said this, he didn't retire on his own terms. He wanted to keep playing. There was a lot of drama, and his play just really, really dropped significantly. And I don't think he wanted to give it up. He wanted to retire, but he had to. There was no way that the Steelers were going to be able to play him for another year. He was not a good quarterback at that point.
Plus, he was making lucrative money.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
As Brett put, his arm retired before he did anyway.
Yep.
And Steelers got caught in that situation of, franchise great, coming to the end, but didn't really know how to tell him, like, then you got to kind of move on. But it does lead me to a follow-up question, because we see this all the time in I guess not only the NFL, but you have a veteran guy who's getting on in years. The team will bring in the new young rookie that's supposed to take over for them. We've seen some instances where the veteran steps up, helps the young player out, and there's been other instances like, was it DeJounte Murray and Tony Parker, where he said Tony Parker didn't help him out in any way. Like, do you think the veteran player has an obligation to help the rookie out, or are you fine if the veteran decides, like, no, I still got a couple years left in me, you figure it out on your own? So how do you feel in those situations?
I mean, personally, every man is every man. But overall, I think, like, if I was a veteran of the game, I would want, especially like if I was with an organization for a long time, if that team believed in me for years and threw money at me for years and gave me opportunities to let me shine, I would honestly want to give all my knowledge and everything I could to their young core and talent for the years I can. Because if I'm one of the greatest of all time to ever play at that position, or just even one of the greatest for that team, just the insight and knowledge and experience you could just change so many young athletes' lives, from way more than just sports, from just the whole outside worlds, from how to handle being a celebrity, accounting, money, agents, talks, everything. And that's a lot that some of these guys need, because some of them burn out and go down wrong paths, like we're seeing a lot of different stars do now. And some of those players probably needed some veteran leadership and didn't have it at times that they needed. So I mean, overall, I think you should do it, but again, no one's obligated to. I mean, have self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a tricky question, because your gut reaction would be, well, everyone should be kind of a good person and look and do what's best for the team and the organization and be that mentor. But I wouldn't expect any quarterback or any franchise player to necessarily do that. I wouldn't hold them accountable and be like, oh man, yeah, Tony Parker, he's a complete jerk for not helping out DeJounte Murray. Like, I'm not going to hold that against Tony Parker, because you have to look out for yourself. You have to look out for number one, especially if you're still trying to get paid and think you have something in the league. I just think that it adds to the character and the leadership for the people that do. Like, Alex Smith was never the greatest quarterback in the world, but it's really hard to find people that says he wasn't a good dude, wasn't a good leader. And he was huge with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City in Mahomes' rookie year, and getting him used to the league and kind of mentoring him. And that's huge. So I would give him, it's probably just like a bonus, because I just can't tell a star who's been leading my team, hey, you got to go to the back seat and train this kid who's 20 or 21 and expect it to go smoothly, because everybody has egos, and those players don't want to admit when they're on the decline, because their whole life is for this sport and for this organization. And it has to be a really bitter pill to swallow that they're done, that they're on the decline, and this franchise that they love has a replacement for them. Like, that has to be really hard, a really big ego shot. So you can't hold them accountable, but you would just like to see it.
Right. So Brett added, they don't have the obligation to do so, but it's just the right thing to do.
That's the best way to put it.
Right. And then Joshua, thanks for tuning in, as well as Brett. If my legacy is already set, I'm going to do my best to help the younger players, which I think is kind of along the lines of what you alluded to a little bit in there, Jake. Like, it's easy if I'm going down as one of the all-time greats to then help out the younger player. But if there's still some questions about me, whether I'm holding on too long or something, the ego of a lot of athletes might be like, I'm going to take care of mine. You kind of figure it out on your own. Like, if you want to learn from me, then watch me. Well, I'm not going to give you like pointers necessarily one on one. So it is a tricky situation, but I kind of feel like Brett, like it's not like in your contract that you have to do it, but
It's the right thing to do.
yeah,
See how I look at it. Like at the end of the day, like if I'm like a 36-year-old point guard, for example, training like a 2021-year-old, and I'm giving him the points and tips, and he does end up surpassing me, like man, that maybe means I probably wasn't that good. If I let his skills surpass me, then that's probably on me.
hmm
You hear different players and legends all the time. The older they get, the more they work out to try to like keep their game up, and it's just what you have to do. If you get a young dude starting over you, it might be for a reason.
right. Well, I mean, we know some athletes can't handle that slap in the face,
Then
but
ask for a trade. Everyone does it now.
right, yeah, exactly. All right, so I do have one last NFL question before we get to the NBA and the playoffs and everything. So last week we looked at the wide receiver group, who's going to have the best, because I guess as on our lead up to the NFL season, kind of ask like a random question each week with some predictions kind of thrown in. So for this one, I'm going to ask, which NFL team do you think has the best chance to go worst to first in their division? So I actually have the standings from last year, in case you need a refresher on who came in last in their division. Let's see. Why is it being delayed? Let me know. Let me know when you see it.
All right, that's all good.
It is.
Okay. So in the AFC East, you have the Jets, who are the bottom team, 7-10. AFC North are the Browns, also 7-10. AFC South, the Texans 3-13-1. AFC West, the Broncos are 5-12. So let's look at the AFC first, then we'll do NFC. Which AFC team do you think best equipped to go bottom of the division to the top of the division this year?
I think when I look at the AFC, I would probably have to say, New York would be very interesting with the new Aaron Rodgers, roster rebuilt over there. Also, I would say the Cleveland Browns are really interesting. This team had a lot of time to work in the offseason, kind of without the media cloud surrounding them. It's been a little bit quieter in Cleveland this offseason, probably, which was very much planned. I think you look at Cleveland and you have to look at New York as one of those top two teams. I do like maybe the Texans. That it's kind of a wild card of a division. You kind of have Jacksonville at the helm there, but it could be just luck last season. You never know when it comes to those specific things. So I look at the Jets as being one of those teams. It's going to be a very tough division, and those division games are going to mean a lot. If the Jets can go, maybe only lose one or two of those games, they could end up coming on top of that division.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to take a pick, I probably would say the Jets. I think Cleveland just has a lot of, I wouldn't say open like errors or anything like that, but I like that Jets roster more. And I think just overall it might be a tougher division, but I do think they have the roster, and Aaron Rodgers is a two-time MVP, not that long ago. So if you can get something working there, that team could probably do some damage.
Okay. And before you go, Jake,
go ahead.
Joshua said the Texans. Brett said it really feels like the Texans have the best shot. And then Sijin said, "What's up? What's going on, Sijin? Appreciate you tuning in. You've been in the chat the past couple of weeks, so thanks for coming on in." So, Jake, do you agree that? Dylan said the Browns. He also said the Jets. Or are you leaning towards maybe the chat, or they're saying maybe it's the Texans?
For me, the AFC is the one that I don't think there's going to be as likelihood of a chance of a worst to first. The AFC is where all the good teams are.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to make a bet, if I were forced to gamble, I would say the New York Jets. I think this team was really good. They went 7-10, and in so many of those games, if they had just an average quarterback, they probably win 4 more games. And because that defense was so good, and
Mm-hmm.
they have a really good young core that they're building around. So I do think that that it goes for the Jets. We don't know what New England's going to do. We have to see what's going to happen with Mac Jones with the new offensive coordinator. We have to trust that Tua is going to stay healthy, and we don't know what's going to happen with Buffalo. Feels like their window might have already been shut. So I do lean towards the Jets. Cleveland is interesting because if Deshaun Watson can get his act together, can play like the quarterback that we saw before he sat out those 2 years, then yeah, they could totally do it. But I do love Cincinnati quite a bit. I don't think Houston has a chance. I think that roster is still too weak, still too young, and I think Jacksonville is going to be set up to kind of run that division for a few years. And then the Broncos. Look, I love Sean Payton. He coached my Saints for years. I don't think they have the guns in that tough division. So I would lean towards the Jets. But if I had to make I wouldn't feel comfortable betting on any of those 4 teams.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The AFC is going to be really tough. I mean, I've been on record on here for a few weeks now. I'm not completely buying into the whole Rodgers with the Jets. And Brett also kind of brings up a good point as well. Depends on which Rodgers shows up. If he's going to play within the flow of the offense, they could. But if he's going to hijack the offense, pass the ball 40 times, minimize the run game, then no chance. That is a risk that the Jets are kind of taken by bringing in Aaron Rodgers.
I think all 3 of us on this show are very hesitant to get on the Rodgers bandwagon. I don't want to speak for Dylan too much, but for me, Aaron Rodgers did not look like a great quarterback last year. It was his worst year since his rookie year. So for me, it's a show me year that he can still do it.
Yeah, I'm very hesitant on, veteran quarterbacks on new teams. I was a big Seahawks guy for a while, so seeing Russell Wilson go to Denver and see how he played in Denver is definitely very eye-opening and just makes me think about that concept more. It's a new system, new place. There's a lot of outside things that go on, not football related, that goes to going to a new city, different media, different everything else. Just you have to handle it. So Aaron Rodgers is, definitely someone known to be in the media, so I don't think this is something that he can't handle, but now it just comes down to the play, and he hasn't played so well in recent years. And he kind of did demand Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, and different things on this team. So when you get to that point, the team's kind of doing everything for you. You got to show up. So expectations are high, so his shoulder pads might be a little heavier going into this season.
Yeah, Brett agrees with you, Jake. He says, I just think it's not going to happen in the AFC in terms of no worst to first. And it's probably a really good chance that could happen. I mean, if Denver was in any other division, I'd probably go Denver. But, yeah. I mean, I do think each of the teams that came in last will probably have a better year, I would say. I mean, for the Texans, you're 3-13-1. Really can't get any worse.
Yeah, they're all going to be better.
Yeah. So I think we can at least agree on that for the AFC. Now, the NFC, on the other hand, you have the NFC East, Commanders 8-1. NFC North, the Bears 3-14. The NFC South, which I have a feeling might be looking there, maybe. Falcons 7-10. Oh, actually, we know Jake's not going to pick the Falcons.
No, all 3 teams went 7-10. Let's be real here. They all finished with the same record.
So I guess technically you could pick either.
You could pick any of those 3 teams.
And then the NFC West, the Cardinals 4-13. So, any chance with an NFC team, or could it be the same as the AFC and none of them could really pull it off?
I favor a team I was doing a lot of research on. I really like the Bears. I feel like this is a very open, division when you come to the NFC North. The Vikings have a lot of question marks. The Lions have question marks. I'm a little down on the Lions this year. A lot of people favorite them. I'm not sure how I feel about them coming into this year. And then the Packers. And then, like Brett said, I had the Falcons on there as well. It was really tough between the Falcons and the Bears when I was making my decision, but I ended up just staying with the Bears. I think I don't know what it is. That conference with the Falcons, the Saints, the Buccaneers, the Panthers, it's just going to be such a toss-up that I feel like everyone's just going to split their games evenly, Don't know how it's going to happen, but everyone's going to win one and lose one, and that's just is what it is. It's going to be exactly like last year. Tampa Bay being 8-9, getting the 4th seed, might happen again. But overall, I do really like the Bears. They have the sixth easiest schedule going into the season. I feel like they addressed a lot of different needs from free agency to the draft. I feel like they really did good with their offensive line. I'm kind of banking Justin Fields to have a lot more of a production year next year as well. And hopefully he can stay healthy for all of it. They did get better offensive line, and they did, I wouldn't say necessarily beef up their defensive line to make it like star caliber, but they did get some good players like TJ Edwards. They did put a lot of money in Tremaine Edmonds. They did really good on getting backup running backs to complement Khalil Herbert. I really like Deonta Foreman. I think he's going to be a nice piece there. And then they signed Travis Homer from Seattle. I know he wasn't a super big piece there, but I like Travis Homer, so I think he's going to be a fun little gadget piece there. And then getting DJ Moore was obviously one of the highlights of their offseason. So they kind of put the ball in Justin Fields' hands basically, and gave him some weapons. They gave him some better offensive line. They drafted Darnell Wright. There's a lot of different stuff. Yeah. That's their big thing, A lot of it's also banking on, just Justin Fields being Justin Fields, Hopefully he can get some of those 70, 80-yard rushing touchdowns in again. But overall, I do like the Bears. I think they have a fairly favorable schedule. They do get to play the teams in the NFC North. So I think that could be, 3 to 4 maybe wins, if they're going on a hot streak. They do have some good games to close off their season against Arizona and Atlanta. So I feel like if they can hit a hot streak on that offense and get their pieces to work, they could be really dangerous, especially with all these teams necessarily being wild cards. I know Minnesota finished 13-4. I don't. It's Kirk Cousins, so let's see if they can do it again.
Right.
Even if they might not necessarily get that 3rd or 4th seed, depending on where they finish. We had 2 teams last season finish 9-8 and get those wild card spots. So I feel like the Bears getting 9 to 10 wins and at least getting that 5th seed, 6th seed. That's definitely in the realm for this team, especially if they can be as good offensively with getting DJ Moore. Hopefully Chase Claypool's better. You still have Darnell Mooney there. So that's really it's gonna be a big step for Justin Fields. Hopefully, this offensive line can keep him protected. I'm excited to see it.
Okay, Jake, who are you thinking?
So the Bears is a good answer to look at here because they were a very bad team. They made a lot of upgrades because that roster was bad. They had a bad offensive line. They had one of the worst skill positions in the league, and they only won 3 games. So they really did a good job this offseason of overhauling their roster. They got a good offensive lineman. They got DJ Moore. They've really revamped it and kind of made it an all or nothing year as far as seeing what Justin Fields can do. This is the year we find out if he's going to be the quarterback for the Bears or not. Minnesota is going to fall apart. They went 3-14, but they had a negative point differential. So that just tells you that their wins really weren't high quality wins. I expect them to fall. Green Bay is going to be bad. I do think Detroit's going to be good, but we haven't seen Detroit be a good and stable organization for so long, and there's so much pressure on them by the media that it'd be really hard for them to continue to meet the expectations. So I could see that happening. But at the risk of sounding like a homer, I think the Saints are going to win in the South. Like I know they're all 3 teams that are tied at 7-10. The Saints, they played so many games with Andy Dalton last year and won 7 games. They could have won a few more if they didn't have some really boneheaded plays, most notably the Mark Ingram running out of bounds instead of just diving for a first down against the Bucs. I'm still so bitter about that game. So I think the Saints are set up to do that. They're not a great team. No team in the NFC South is a good team. They all have serious flaws. I don't know how I feel exactly about Derek Carr. He's going to be better. He is going to be better than Dalton. He's going to be better than Winston. But the coaching does make me nervous. I'm going to pick the Saints, but the Bears otherwise would be my answer because that division, it's really hard to trust those teams. It's hard to trust the Lions. It's hard to trust the Vikings. And we know the Packers are going to take a step backwards because they have to see if Jordan Love's going to be the dude. And I don't think he's going to be the guy. I don't think he's going to be a franchise caliber quarterback.
Yeah. I think it's interesting you brought up the Lions because what happened with the Lions last year was they completely, toppled any expectations that people had of them. So now in the second year where everybody's going to be looking at them like, okay, so this offense, not that bad. Goff is not, turnstile back there, or he's not a statue. He's not. He looked like a starting quarterback last year. So now in the second year,
Yeah.
when defenses know what you want to do, can Goff, replicate the year he had last year? We'll have to see. So I think the Bears are a good pick, but I'm actually going to go different. I think the Panthers could do it. I mean, I'm looking in the same division as you with the NFC South, but I think the Panthers defense is still going to be pretty good. And I think that's going to keep them in, especially division games. And while Bryce Young continues to develop, I think by like mid-season, he might look really good. And I don't see anybody running away with it in the point where I think the Panthers make like a late season run and end up winning the NFC South. I would have gone with the Falcons, but I just had too many questions about Ritter. He's like the one part of that team that I just don't know about. They made a lot of moves in the offseason that I actually agree with, but the fact that they didn't address the quarterback and they're making it seem like Ritter is the guy,
He's not the guy. He's not the guy. Carolina's a good pick. They're a really good team. If you think back to last year, if DJ Moore, I think it was DJ Moore, doesn't take his helmet off against the Falcons, they win that game. Then I think they win the tiebreaker over the Buccaneers and win the division. So I mean they're not that far from winning it from last year. And as Anthony said, the Saints,
Sam Darnold as their quarterback.
Yeah, and that was with Sam Darnold. I think the Saints have either the first or second easiest schedule in the league based off of whatever rankings you look at.
Yeah,
so there's definitely a way.
Like that whole NFC South is like ranked in like all of them are like ranked in like the top like 7 or 8.
Yeah,
it's easy. So I think it's a gimme to do that. It's funny that no one picked the Cardinals. I'm just gonna enjoy watching that dumpster fire go on. I know it's a little painful for Dylan because he's a big Kyler Murray fan, but
yeah, I mean, it sucks. I mean, I like supporting my OU guys, but at the end of the day, I'm a Seahawks fan. So, the Cardinals have to take a step back. It's not my fault,
Yeah.
I root for the Seahawks against them. I just hope Kyler Murray does okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I actually did something where I looked at the Falcons schedule. And the craziest thing is they literally get every rookie quarterback on their schedule. And that's when I was just like, I knew more about Ritter, I'd be like,
yeah, man, I really like the Falcons. I feel like they're gonna just go straight like smash mouth, like run the ball to where like Ritter's only gonna pass like 20 times a game.
12
times.
John
Robinson's gonna have like 25 carries. Like Tyler Algier's gonna have like 15. Like Cordell Patterson will have like 15 as well. Their fullback will probably get 5.
Yeah. I mean, they could. We know Arthur Smith loves running the ball. That's what he did in Tennessee.
And then they
I just think there's going to be those moments where Ritter's going to have to make a play with his arm, and I just don't know.
All they're going to do is they're going to just have Drake London and Kyle Pitts run fades in the red zone, and that's going to be the only time they pass the ball. Just like throw it up to the big guys and hope they get it, and then when you're anywhere else but the red zone, run the ball.
Anthony brings up a good point. Taylor Heineke is the backup. And we know, based off the past couple of years, Heineke might be the most popular guy in Atlanta. Because the minute Ritter struggles, they'll be like, you put Heineke in, Heineke we know will have like a really hot 6 weeks. And then after that, he'll start fading. But
man, to be fair, in that division, 6 wins is enough maybe.
That could be enough. No, Heineke he's a great locker room guy. Everybody loves him. I've never heard anyone say anything bad about him as the person. He's a very limited quarterback. But what I could totally see happening is Riddler gets dinged up at halftime. Heineke comes out the second half, has a electric second half. They ink out a win. He has to miss one more game, so they go on this 2-game winning streak. And now the team's like, well, shoot, we're trying to win, but we still need to find out what we have with Riddler, and it could just I like Taylor Heineke a lot, but unless you are 100% behind the quarterback, your number one quarterback being your starter, he's not the backup you want because he can create controversy if your quarterback is playing really poorly because he's a spark plug and he could come in and just rejuvenate a team. So if you're not sure on your number one, don't get Heineke. Is how I feel with that.
How would we feel about this Atlanta team if they had someone like Gardner Minshew running their quarterback? Would we feel more confident about this Atlanta team?
Would
for sure. Feel on the fence.
I like Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, I probably would.
I'm just trying to think of quarterbacks that, like, Atlanta could have possibly went out after this offseason, that could have
Still
potentially
think
been
they should have
better.
gone after Lamar.
Yeah, I feel like they really had an opportunity to like I feel like they could have been like a third seed, They would had a high chance of having a 10, 11 game season, especially with the schedule they got. It wouldn't have changed still by getting Lamar. Like they were in prime position, if a couple things go their way. Of course, you never want to hear injuries, but if a couple things go their way, that could be a team surprising people conference championship weekend if Lamar is what he is.
Yeah. I
No,
mean,
it's
hopefully for the Falcons, they don't look back at this season as a missed opportunity. Because, like I said, they literally get every rookie quarterback on their schedule. And I was like, it's come to fall in their lap like any better. So Syjan says no confidence in Ritter. I mean,
the more,
It's rough.
I
It's
just
rough.
don't know what he is right now. Not to say he couldn't have some crazy second year development and make us all look crazy for questioning him. It's just that I don't know if I have enough belief in him for the Falcons to turn around and win the division necessarily. I think they'll be competitive because I just think all four of the teams, none of them are going to run away from the pack. So
Mm-mm.
I guess by default, Ritter
yeah,
could keep them in it, but I don't know if he's good enough to have them win it.
Like it's
yeah.
so weird that we've mentioned all these teams without really touching on Tampa Bay, and it's like, man, like if Baker Mayfield is like decent, like this Tampa Bay team could just make us all just like have to be quiet and just confidently win 10 games, 9
Mm-hmm.
games. Baker Mayfield is like, I know he's a joke when it comes to it, but like at the end of the day, he has played good football, and it's not like he hasn't played good football in a while. Like he didn't play horrible in the Rams. Like, there's probably games he could have been better. His decision making is still very suspect, but he had a lot of time to work with a Buck staff that I don't think really changed too much. Um, he had a whole offseason to actually work with this roster. He has great receivers who will bail him out. You can say what you will about the Browns, but Odell's had his injury issues, and we haven't seen a good season from him for a while. I.e., if that was Baker or whatever that was, he's gonna have an opportunity to do something there. They still have a great defense. You know, Devin White may or may not get traded. I think it's going to be one of those situations where they pull an Austin Eckler and like just structure his contract to give him more incentives or something like that to make him happier. But this Bucks team still could be a very, very, very good player into this conference as well.
Yeah. Anthony says Ritter is in the same boat as Trey Lance. You don't know who he is, or he might just be a bust.
Bro, the Falcons should trade for Trey Lance.
I actually hadn't thought of that.
I think you're
sorry, my
muted.
mute was on. Yeah, I'm
No,
muted.
you're good.
Ritter, he played 3 games without throwing a touchdown. There's so many games where he just really wasn't. Nothing stood out that was like, oh my goodness, this guy is fantastic, and there's a lot of weapons on that team. I just have to. I'm not going to put any stock into it until I see it. I just don't think he has it, and I think Atlanta would have been much better served going after a quarterback this offseason, whether in the draft or free agency. Because in the games that I watched, especially his first start against the Saints, where he threw for like 90 yards and completed half of his passes. Like
Mm-hmm.
I know it was his first start, but there was nothing in that game that made me think, oh, this guy has it. Even if a young quarterback plays doesn't have great stats, you can see when they have it. Like Kenny Pickett's a great example. You look at his box score, and you could be like, "Oh, is he really that good?" But when you watch him play, it's like, "Oh, he has that dog in him." There's things you really like about Kenny Pickett, and I just never saw that with Desmond Ritter.
Yeah, I mean, that whole quarterback class outside of Pickett was very suspect to begin with, and it's kind of showing that way. You look at Malik Willis, you look at literally kind of everyone in that class that isn't Kenny Pickett, and it's not seeming like they're doing super well. Um, it's going to be an interesting situation for Ritter. It doesn't seem like the team has a lot of confidence in him. Like, I mean, even going into like last season, just like the play calling and stuff, it's not like he had like full control of the offense, making a lot of checkdowns. He wasn't really passing a lot. They were a very run heavy team. And it's just like they didn't spend a first round pick on you. So it's not like they have to be obligated to you. And at a drop of a dime, they could be like, get Bijan to progress and have a good young quarterback, i.e., maybe a Caleb Williams, maybe a Drake May, to just plug right into that system, and that conference still might be a little going into that season after, and you could just go in and win again. So it's gonna be interesting. That whole area is going to be interesting. I really like the Panthers because I think they did make a lot of win now moves as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I, I definitely agree. It's going to be another division that I think gets a lot of attention. Now, hopefully, it's not for the attention it got last year, where three teams 7-10, 1-8-9.
So bad.
Yeah,
So
hopefully
bad.
there's like some a bit of improvement in the division. Maybe the winner can get over 500. Let's hope for that, and then we'll move on from there the following year. But I definitely think it will be more interesting this year than last year, just for Bryce Young, Carr, got Bijan Robinson, so new faces there that I think will bring some excitement at least to some of the games within the division, and Baker Mayfield, because we know people love talking about Baker Mayfield, whether good or bad. He's going to be part of the conversation. But I think we can go ahead and go to the NBA now. Now, before talking about the playoffs, I do want to talk about Carmelo Anthony, who called it a career after 19 seasons. It's crazy to think that he almost made it 20. But yeah, good old Melo out of Syracuse, started his career, wins a title at Syracuse, goes to the draft. Look back at that draft. One of the drafts we'll probably remember for years to come. Darko Milicic, obviously why. And yeah, it's still
Those
interesting
frosted
to me
tips,
that
man.
I guess I mean
Jay who?
the fact that he really went to Detroit and Carmelo was sitting there. Somebody in Detroit has to explain that one, but Milicic did get a ring, so we can't take that away from him. But looking at Carmelo Anthony, we know that he was a guy that was seen as offensively gifted. Defensively, you knew you weren't going to get much on that end of the floor. But looking back on his career, like, how will you remember Carmelo Anthony's NBA career?
For me, I'm just gonna remember like he was the king of the mid range. He was absolutely unstoppable. He was like 6'8". He was big. He was strong. Like he came out of college his first year, and he was built. He was thick.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like he was always good for 25 points a game. Efficiency wasn't always his forte, but he was always going to play a lot of minutes, get you some good
Mm-hmm.
buckets. It felt like he never was afraid of the big moment. Um, but unfortunately, there's that part where it's like he just fell a little short. The thing that comes to mind with him is that he just should have waited a few more months and not demanded the trade to the Knicks and just gone as a free agent, because that trade decimated the Knicks roster and they never were going to have a chance to be really successful, because that Nuggets team used all those assets and players and had a decent little run in the
Mm-hmm.
early 2010s. It just felt like Denver. It felt like Carmelo always made the wrong choice with where to go. I don't remember which year it was. There was a year after he'd been in New York for a couple of years. He was a free agent, and there was a lot of people saying he should go to Chicago. Chicago just needed one more scorer to
Yep.
go and be a good team. When the Knicks were not a good team, they really were not a good team. And if he had gone to Chicago, he'd take a little bit less money, but that team would be all set. And he chose the Knicks because he's from New York and he wanted the money. So part of that kind of lingers in there. But I remember, I think it was the 2010 playoffs. He took that Nuggets team to the Western Conference Finals. He balled out. He lost to the Lakers, who were the eventual champions, but he gave the Lakers their biggest test that year in the playoffs. So if they just would have squeaked by that team, he would have won that ring for sure. Um, but no, fantastic player, absolute stud, no doubt, Hall of Famer. I think he's ninth on the all-time scoring list. So tons of good things to say about him, but there's always just that kind of what if he didn't demand that big contract in New York and waited for free agency? What if he'd gone to Chicago? And it's sad because he was a great, great player. You look at his basketball reference, and up until he was 20, till he was 32, he was putting up 22 points a game. It's just when that last year in Oklahoma City, it just kind of fell off. And the last thing I'll say before I hand it off to Dylan is Carmelo was fantastic in the mid and early 2000s because of what the game was. His skill set just did not translate to where the NBA is today. And it's really unfortunate because he's so gifted at what he does, but it's just not efficient. It's not what the NBA is today. So the game just went past him based on what he was good at and what the league turned into.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very well explained there. I mean, like overall, I would look at Carmelo being one of those guys like who wasn't afraid of the grind. You know, like you said, he wasn't afraid of the big moment. Um, he just fell short sometimes. You know, he sometimes even if you're not afraid to take those shots and be in those spotlights, you still gotta still execute, and that was his biggest downfall. I look at him as someone that was like. I would kind of look at him as like your favorite player's favorite player, you know. People didn't really have a lot of bad words to say about Melo. I mean, people loved him anytime he was a free agent or showed up just at a game. Everyone was cheering for him, getting excited. You know, people loved him. Um, iconic for his hoodie, of course. You know that will always be a game changer. But overall, I think he was just someone that just loved the game of basketball. Like Jake said, his skill set didn't translate. He definitely had an older skill set of basketball, and unlike like LeBron and D Wade in that, and then in that respective class where they kind of learned how to evolve. Carmelo kind of just stayed with how his game was played, and it didn't really translate over, which sucks. And it sucks that like Jake said as well, like that trade to the Knicks kind of decimated that roster to where they couldn't get other players kind of evolve around him or help him evolve. It was kind of what we could fill the roster with, and that does suck. You would hope to see him win big or have his big moment, and he never really kind of got that spotlight. But overall, like I said, like he loved the game of basketball and he did his work. He wasn't afraid of the grind. Like ninth on all-time scoring isn't something anyone can get. Obviously he's in the top 10, so it's very impressive what he's done. And I'm not sure if I would say he's changed the game in an evolutionary way, but just how smooth his mid-range is still so it was still a sweet sight. You always thought when he pulled up from there it was probably going to go in.
Yeah.
And one quick thing, Dylan, for Dylan's point, he said he's your favorite player's favorite player. Go listen to Kobe Bryant talk about Carmelo and the true respect that Kobe had. He would often be asked, like, who was the toughest person for you to guard? And Kobe almost always said it was Carmelo because of his size, his strength, his quickness, and that mid-range game. So great point there, Dylan. Like when guys like Kobe are idolizing Carmelo and talking him up, it shows just how good he really was.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And here's even the crazier thing. When he and LeBron were coming out, I thought Carmelo was going to be the better player. And maybe even crazier than that, I actually have a Carmelo Anthony jersey. The Denver Nugget little powder blue, whatever color. Like, I was a really big Carmelo fan. And then, kind of like you said, Jake, that moment when he chose to go to New York and I thought he was going to go to Chicago, I was like, yeah, I think he's going to be another one of those guys who just never wins it all. And at least for some players, it's like, Jordan got in his way or whatever. But Carmelo seemed like kind of sabotaged himself with certain decisions. Because even those Denver teams, I think it was reported like he and George Karl kind of bumped heads because I guess George Karl wanted him to do a little more defensively. Carmelo wasn't here for that. And you look at those Denver teams, like you had Kenyon Martin, Chauncey Billups, Allen Iverson, really good teams. And I feel like if he'd stuck it out there, probably could have won it there. You won it out, fine. You got a taste of New York, and then it was like, hey, Chicago. And this is like pre-Derrick Rose injury. That seemed like the logical place to go. He decided to stay. It also makes you wonder, like, if he was in Chicago, would Derrick Rose have felt the need to do so much offensively? We don't know. Maybe some Marvel multiverse somewhere. D Rose never gets hurt. Carmelo's there, and the Bulls are just a dynasty for like 5 years or something. Who knows? But
Yeah, there's only one team that got in his way from a title. That was that year he made the Western Conference
yeah,
Finals, and that was Kobe. And then George, as far as his coaching with George Karl had an issue with like every player he
I know.
coached. Though, like in Carmelo's defense, like I've never met a player that's like,
Right,
oh, me and George, we're best friends. We send Christmas cards to each other every
right,
year. You never hear that.
yeah. Well, I mean, I liked the what was it his supersonic teams because I was big into NBA Jam. Seattle was always my team I picked, so I always had some love for George Karl. So I probably took his side with the Carmelo thing, but that is true. You don't really hear a lot of players who are like, yeah, George
He's a
Karl is
great coach, but he's not a player's coach. That's all
right.
there is to it.
Yeah, but I mean, Carmelo Anthony retires, and now to transition, we have the Lakers who get eliminated by the Nuggets. You have LeBron after the game, I guess reflecting. So now people are like, could he actually retire? Is he coming back? First question: either of you believe he's actually going to retire?
No,
No.
Okay,
I mean, I mean, after a loss like that, it's like you probably have that like gut feeling. You're like, man, like, oh, but overall, like he'll probably sleep on it a couple weeks. Get into the grind. The team will talk with him. The good thing about NBA off seasons, they move pretty quick before they get into the next one. So it's not like the NFL where we have this big layoff. It's more like it's kind of quick. The draft's going to be coming up soon, and that will center around LeBron. So it's not like he'll have a big, super a long amount of time to make a decision. We'll know fairly soon, and we'll kind of know what the direction's heading. Word travels fast in the NBA. It's a fast-moving league, which I really like. So we'll see what happens. I don't think he'll retire though. I think he might go on like his like a GM mode and kind of mix and move things again. Feel like different things need to happen, but overall, I feel like he still has a couple years left in him. I know he kind of pushed back on saying he playing with Bronny, but I think at the end of the day, that's probably a goal he wants. I feel like he is the type of dude who wants to go out on top. Not saying an ego or anything like that, but LeBron does seem like the dude who kind of wants to go out on a ring or go out on a big moment, and getting swept doesn't seem like a LeBron way to go out.
Yeah, he's not going to retire. The first thing is that I've said this before. Like I'm a huge LeBron James fan. I usually will defend him when there's all the haters out there. But I have to be honest, I have to be unbiased. That LeBron, he's a diva. He knows how to manipulate the media. He knows how to keep the spotlight on himself, and he just got swept. And everyone's going to be talking about the Nuggets. They're all talking about the Heat and the Celtics, and he wanted some of that attention. So he intentionally said that little breadcrumb about possibly retiring. It's not going to happen. The other thing too is, and this just doesn't go for LeBron, this goes for any fan, any organization. When you lose in rough fashion, whether it's getting swept or blown out or falling apart, the worst time to make a decision about your future, either for yourself or for your team, is right after you lose. Like for the 76ers, for the fans to want to rehaul everything, like you have to give yourself a couple of days, a week or so at least, before you can really make a smart decision, because you're so negative already. And I think that's part of what happened with LeBron is they started off really bad. They made this great comeback after the trade deadline, and it felt like this was probably LeBron's best chance he's had in a couple of years to really make a good run to the finals, and they just didn't have it. Like they played good. LeBron had a great game 4. This Denver team is just really, really good, and so there's part of that as well. But he's not going to retire. There's no way.
okay. Well, I'll just say real quick. Yeah, there's no chance he retires. I still think he wants to play with Bronny. I mean, I think that's probably a little too far, but I think he definitely gives it like another run just to see if they can.
Yeah, I would say 2 years. I would say
Yep,
2 years.
2 years.
And if he hangs it up in 3, no, that's fine. If he hangs it up after 2, I'd be like, that's probably a good timeline.
Yeah,
Like
I
it's
agree.
getting to that, like you get to that point with players where you're like, yeah, like this is probably a comfortable time. Like if you retired, like I'd understand. And like I'm not saying I'm there with LeBron yet, but like 2 years, I'd probably be like, probably be what 40-ish, 41.
Yeah, he'd be 40,
Maybe
41.
40. Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, so like he'd be getting onto
No.
that older age, Hopefully, if he wants to go out on top, I definitely still think he has the gas tank. Definitely just has to go into this off season, think about what needs to be fixed. This roster, was kind of built together at a trade deadline, so maybe they didn't have the chemistry they would like. So he has a lot he can do. He's a smart player, and he's always been a smart player. So I feel like he does have some energy left in the tank, and I feel like he's the type of dude that wants to go out, leaving everything out there. So.
Yeah. I think he also wants to get to 40,000 points as well. Like he's at 38 and some change. He like for him, like how cool would it be to be like at 40,000, like 40K, 10K, 10K. Like
Yep.
to be in that
Only-
exclusive club.
yeah.
Like I'm not only the only dude that scored 40,000 points, but I did 10,000 rebounds, 10,000 assists. He wants that as well. That's a huge argument for the GOAT in his favor.
Yeah. Before I guess we get back onto it, Sajin wanted to throw us in off topic. OKC going back home to the Emerald City.
Sadly,
I
that would
Like
that
for an
wouldn't
exposition
happen.
game? Like for a preseason game? Because they did that once
Yeah.
where they had a
Yeah.
preseason game and Kevin Durant had a Sonics jersey.
Yeah.
Um,
I live in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma only has one professional sports team, that being the Thunder. And like a lot of people here in Oklahoma love the Thunder. I work in a sports store, and like our Thunder gear sells very well. People love the Thunder. People probably weren't the biggest fans of them moving from Seattle, but if Seattle gets a team, it will be an expansion team, and rightfully so. The next expansion team will be Seattle, I think, over anything else. I think if you even put Vegas over Seattle, like you'll get a lot of angry fans. Like
Yep.
you even have NBA players being like, bring the Supersonics back, like make
Yep.
Seattle a team there. Everyone's saying basketball needs to be back there. So I feel like they'll get their due diligence. It won't necessarily be a brand new roster. I hope they do like retire just all the Supersonics jerseys in whatever stadium that will be built there. That would be very nice. Have a big ceremony. Not even like for your first home game, but just series of home games. Just make it special. But yeah, OKC's not going anywhere. Like the Thunder fans here, like they like the Thunder. They have a bright future here. This new generation of like Thunder basketball is known as like the Thunder. It's not like the Westbrook or more Kevin Durant, like where there's some supersonic traces.
right.
Like
Right.
this is new era of Thunder basketball. So
Yeah, the league is going to expand in less than my guess is less than 5 years. A lot of people that I listen to, they're like saying like it's gonna happen. It's just a matter of time. And Seattle's
yeah, it
going
was
to be
all
the
about that
first team.
CBA agreement.
Yep. So Seattle's going to be the first team, and Vegas is going to be the second. So I'm just happy Seattle's going to get a team. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I didn't like the Supersonics, but I respected them, and they deserve to have a team, 100%.
Can't wait. That's gonna be my forever NBA team once they get a team back.
Oh, very cool, very cool.
And Dylan did bring up a good point about the CBA, because with the not the playing tournament, but like the little mid-season tournament that's a part of the CBA. From all their details, it's like they're doing like a World Cup style tournament. Like
Yeah, and you need 32. 30
You need
30 makes it
32, so
awkward.
so you
30
need
makes it
2 more.
awkward.
Yeah. So it's gonna be Vegas and Seattle most likely, but I do think Dylan they'd have to announce Seattle first and then go with Vegas.
Even if they're announced the same day, Seattle has to be announced first.
Right.
Yeah, bro. Like that's gonna be a big announcement. You need to get like all the supersonic legends you can there.
You have
Like,
to have
you
Gary
to-
Payton. You
Mhm.
have to
Yeah,
have Gary
you have to
Payton.
make it big. Like it has to be the Supersonics. I've seen people literally said like they should come out with a different name, and it's like
Nope.
no, it has to be
No.
the Supersonics, like or the Sonics if you just want to shorten it. I don't think anybody will hate that. Like just
It's got the same
overall,
colors and everything.
yeah.
Yeah,
Even
you
if
need that
even
green
if
and
they
yellow.
even if they
Yeah.
wanted to be a little updated and then be a little more modernized, like that, I don't even hate that either. If they wanted to do it like like just like a green, like the white, maybe a little yellow. You don't need to have the orange in there, but like just make it nice. And just imagine those throwback jersey days when they actually do bring the old ones out. It'd be event. It's such a good time. The amount of money that area could make just off of basketball being there would be crazy.
It'd be huge.
Can't wait for the NBA to expand.
All right, I guess we can answer Sajin's next question. Does another King James loss affect his legacy? To me, I think it's no, because I feel like those who have him as the GOAT getting swept by Denver doesn't change anything. To people like me who don't have him as the GOAT, where I have him as like second best player I've ever seen, he's still there to me. So I don't think it affects his legacy. I think at this point, 20 years in, there's very little that I think should change your legacy. But we know it's going to be a talking point all off season next year. So, I mean, did it affect his legacy
No.
to either of you?
Like getting swept is like, yeah, getting swept sucks. And the people that hate on LeBron could say, oh, he's been swept in 3 different decades and had all the, and it's like, dude, it's like, shut up. Like it's not going to affect his legacy because he cemented it. Like if you're really going to dog LeBron James for getting swept in the Western Conference Finals when he's in year 20 and his team started off like 2-10 and barely made the playoffs, then you're just a hater. You're not looking at this in a realistic way because he's made and set his legacy. And for any athlete that's made their legacy, it's very hard for them to do something that's going to seriously like downgrade it quite a bit because of what they've done. I don't have him as the greatest of all time. For me, he's number 2 on my list. But like, no, this, if anything, it should enhance his legacy because this team was a pile of garbage and they got to the Western Conference Finals. You could look at, depending what happens with the Warriors, that he ended the Warriors run and he stomped them. Like that team stomped and ended. They like took the life out of the Golden State Warriors. So you have to add that into it as well. The fact they also beat a 2 seed pretty handily. Like you have to look at what he did and what the expectations were for this team. So no, for me, it's a hard no on that one.
Yeah, I mean, to keep it pretty simple. No, it's not. It's not anything too crazy for me. I mean, at the end of the day, it's rough winning a championship. There's so many different legends that can't do it, and LeBron's already gotten a slew of them. So it's like, yeah, it sucks. Maybe he didn't add another one to his hardware, and definitely going out in a sweep doesn't help. But at the end of the day, they did make the conference finals as a 7th seed, and you can look at the other side of the bracket and said Miami made the finals as an 8th seed. But overall, I think you have to just it's just what it is. I mean, it's a rough league, We saw Giannis. We saw Giannis get knocked out by an 8th seed. We saw our former champs get beat by the Lakers. So I mean, like, it's hard to win a championship. It's harder to win back to back. So at any given year, you have to have like everything go right for you. And you look at the Nuggets case, the thing that's been hurting them so bad has been injuries throughout the years, and now this team is staying healthy through the playoffs, and look at them, like they're going to the finals. And maybe if they had the same injury luck going out throughout all those years, the playoffs could have been way different. But it is
this
what
Nuggets
it is.
team. This Nuggets team is really, really good. Like they haven't
Yep.
lost at home.
And the
all
thing is,
postseason.
we haven't had healthy Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and Nikola Jokic, like a whole healthy Nuggets roster. And now that we've got a whole playoffs with them, basically, like them making the finals is like, yeah, that's understandable. Like they're all healthy.
Jamal Murray is a stud. He looked really good this series. I saw he was like a 90-50-40 for the whole series. Like to do like they're awesome. So no, I don't. There's no way for me.
So Saijan agrees with us. He said, totally agree with you guys. No, it doesn't. It was a question I saw on Twitter this morning. Pretty sure I saw that same question on Twitter as well, because that's what Twitter's for. David does say it does affect LeBron. Look here, fellas, keep it real. LeBron needs to retire now. He doesn't need the NBA championship. He made his money. Time for the new guys and a new team to get a chance at the NBA championship. Then he followed up with Nuggets and Heat in the finals.
Now that's going to be a given, that last part. Sorry, Kyle.
I understand it. I get people wanting to see like legends retire and just letting the new generation play, because it's like, sometimes it feels like you're delaying the inevitable, and no one wants to kind of see you, like, not necessarily be washed, but nobody really wants to see you just kind of like waste your career on some garbage years, not playing your greatest basketball when you could retire, like, averaging like 27 points a game on top, and like looking at like you retired at your peak. So I get that, but LeBron, that's not LeBron's mindset. I mean, it's kind of always, and I don't want to say kind of self-centered, but it's kind of just been about him. He has that GM type thing where he needs players around him to fit his play style, and what he wants and different things like that. So, he's going to go out on his own terms. So he doesn't care about those young players on the roster.
No, for LeBron, it's come take it from me. Like force me on. The Nuggets did. Like they forced him out of the playoffs. But
Mhm.
at the same time, like LeBron wasn't a bum this year. Like he missed some time with that injury, but he also put up 29, 8, and 7, like in year 20. That's pretty remarkable. We get that he can't do all the things he used to do. He's not as good on defense. He has to coast a lot of times because just doesn't have that energy. But I don't recall people wanting Michael Jordan to retire those 2 years with the Wizards. They were just happy that he was there. They wanted to keep seeing him play great basketball. And he didn't win because the other guys took it from him. So I don't have, unless he turns into like kind of like what we talked about with Carmelo, where the last few years Carmelo really wasn't any good coming off of the bench. You don't want to see it like that. And LeBron cares too much about his legacy to do that. But when you're still putting up 29, what was it, 29, 8, and 7? Like, no, you still have a place in the NBA.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. But I will also say, I think if you're along the lines of it not affecting LeBron's legacy, then because I think a lot of people who were like LeBron is the GOAT would reference Jordan's years in Washington and be like, that was a hit on his legacy. So you can't necessarily have it both ways. So I
Yeah,
think
I mean, we
both
we have
cases
so
it
many
doesn't
greats,
affect
but
either one.
it's hard to be the greatest all the time. Like you have slip ups, You don't
Mhm.
shoot perfect from the field. No player shoots, 100% everywhere. No player doesn't have no fouls. Like it happens. You make mistakes. That's the point of the game.
So David says, I still can't believe Jamal Murray made history for being the first player to have back-to-back 40-plus point playoff games without recording a turnover. Look, Jamal Murray, the minute he got it going, that was basically the downfall for the Lakers, and it was kind of the biggest reason why I thought the Nuggets would win the series was you look at Memphis. Memphis couldn't shoot from the perimeter. That played into the Lakers' hand. Golden State, you had Curry, who was really good, but Poole and Klay Thompson,
No
they
one
couldn't
else.
buy a bucket from
Yeah.
the perimeter. That played into the Lakers' hands. Unfortunately, with Denver, you had Jokic hitting the little 1 foot step back three a couple of times. You had Jamal Murray go off. KCP had a kind of under the radar, pretty good series. Even in like last night, Aaron Gordon started making a couple of threes. So Denver was just
You know you're
better
balling when Aaron
equipped to
Gordon's
take.
making threes.
Right at that point, yeah, you kind of know it's not your night. But you know, the Nuggets took advantage of I thought it was a weakness with the Lakers in their perimeter defense. Now their defense wasn't actually that bad last night because the Nuggets did hit a couple of tough shots, but for most of the series it was open threes and Murray hitting a lot of them, KCP hitting a lot of them, which you had 4 games of pretty tight games. Those were all the difference for each of the games, and that's
It,
why Lakers got
it,
swept.
it's the Jokic effect. He unlocks everybody around him, and he makes it so easy for everybody to just dish
So
out to
Erica.
people. Hey, what's up, Erica? Like he finds people so easily that they get those 3-point shots, and it makes the perimeter defense that's so much harder to be effective because you have the Joker who can just
Mhm.
do anything that he wants. I know that Embiid won the MVP and earned it, but man, it's hard to look at Jokic comparing like to Giannis and be like, well, I think Jokic might be the best player in the league. I've said every time I've been on this podcast that for me, I think Giannis is the best player in the league.
Yeah,
But man, watching Jokic, man, that dude's good. He unlocked the whole team this whole series.
yeah, I definitely agree with that. David says Jamal's a treat to watch. I
Absolutely.
mean, if anybody didn't know how good of a player Jamal Murray was, I mean, you just saw it in this series. I mean, I get the
And the
whole
thing,
bubble Murray thing, but
yep.
he's definitely more than just bubble Murray.
Yeah, the thing too that I really like is he had that injury. He missed a lot of time, and this
Yeah.
season when he was coming back from that injury, it felt like he didn't have his confidence in his shot. And a
Mhm.
lot of people have that with a knee injury where you're worried about injuring it again. You're worried about how you're going to land. You're worried about being aggressive with it. And we didn't really see a whole lot of good Jamal Murray this year. I think he only averaged like 20 points a game in a league where scoring's been higher than it's ever been. And for this is what Jamal Murray really is. This is what his potential is. And for him to get
Yeah.
that confidence back, if he can continue to play like that with, not being worried about his knee, the Nuggets are going to win the title. They're going to win the NBA Finals regardless of who they play, because he's the best way to put. Yeah, he's a treat to watch. I can't think of a better way to put it than he's just a treat to watch.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I guess we'll quickly say before we go into the Heat Celtics, what was the biggest, I guess, factor for the Nuggets in sweeping the Lakers?
I mean, I think it was just overall chemistry, depth. I mean, it just seems like they were shooting on all cylinders, like Jokic was the biggest focal point of that team when it comes to just their whole just flow of the team. And it's like he didn't really have like the greatest couple last game of the series, and that didn't even matter at all. The Jamal Murray just like stepped up and took over, and that's something you needed. I mean, the Lakers didn't really seem like they had a guy outside of maybe Austin Reeves, but like Austin Reeves wasn't dropping 40-point games with 0 turnovers. They didn't seem the Lakers had like an answer. I mean, Jordan had a good point. Like this Lakers team had a lot of fight in them, but they just didn't have anything to just get them over that edge. They were missing something on that roster, and that Nuggets team was too talented, had so much depth. They could afford to let Jokic sit on the bench for a little bit and Jamal Murray run the offense. They could afford to let Jamal Murray rest for a little bit and Jokic run the offense. They had just so many opportunities to where it wouldn't feel like they were lacking on offense or defense that the Lakers didn't. And they just got outplayed. They got to play their type of basketball all game because they didn't really have to worry. The Lakers did make it tough, but the Nuggets knew at the end of the day, like, if we step it up in gear, this is a team we could beat. And that's what they did. Even yesterday's game was a perfect example. Like the Lakers were up fairly decent at one point, and the Nuggets were like, okay, we got to lock it and, win this game. And that's what they did.
Yeah, the Nuggets had the better team. They had the better players. Dale made a great point that, the Lakers had a lot of fight. They were a very tough team. They're very physical. They played very hard. But it comes down to sometimes you just need the players. And Nikola Jokic was the best player on the floor every single night. And Jamal Murray was, you could argue, was one of the top 3 players on the floor because he was great. So it just came to a matter of just talent. They just have a better team. They have a better chemistry. And I've said it before. I'll say it again. Nikola Jokic just unlocks everybody. He raises the floor of the players around him, their ability, more than any player in the league today. There's like, it's when I watch him play, it's like Magic Johnson kind of level of elevating everybody that's around him. It's insane that a center's doing that.
Yeah. And I think the biggest downfall for the Lakers would be AD's inconsistency. It caught up to them in this series, and that's going to be something that they're going to have to address in the offseason because, all this talk about Kyrie Irving being there, look, if I'm the Lakers, I'm not going anywhere near that. I'm not risking, Hachimura, Reeves, guys like that to bring in Kyrie Irving and hope that he's committed next year, and we get past the conference finals and into the NBA finals. I wouldn't bank on that, so I think they stick with the young guys. Make a couple of moves here or there because they got to figure out D'Angelo Russell as well. He's another reason why this series didn't go their way, because when that trade was made and they got rid of Westbrook, everybody was looking at the D'Angelo Russell piece of that and like, hey, this is a guy who could take pressure off of LeBron offensively, be a guy who could score 20 on a given night. They were getting single-digit games all series from him, and that's completely unacceptable because he gives you less than nothing defensively. So if he's not making shots, then you can't play him. And they got to the point where, Ham had to finally bench him, but he was still supposed to be an important piece of this team. So we'll see what the Lakers do in the offseason. I mean, it's gonna be interesting. Because now I think I've seen some people talking about would LeBron want to leave and all that, and I don't know. LA's just going to be a off-season circus, I think.
Always is, though.
Yeah. David says, I'm starting to like the Nuggets.
They're a fun team
I've
to watch.
I've been a
They
fan of the
are.
Nuggets. Yeah,
When they can get like on fire, they're so fun because they have like a mixture of everything. They can give you great defensive plays, they can give you high flying posterizing action, and then they can just give you just straight fundamental basketball. You like threes, Jamal Murray will hit a couple of those. Jokic will hit one by just standing there. Like it's a fun team. It's a fun team. They do everything well.
Yep. You like
Yeah.
flashy passing? Just watch Jokic. Watch what he does. You could just
Yep.
have fun just watching him, on offense, not watching the other four guys on the Denver Nuggets. And I think to kind of add on for David, when we get again, assuming that the Heat close the series out, we're gonna have a fantastic NBA Finals
Mhm.
because of both these teams play so unbelievably hard. It's gonna. I know people. The mainstream is going to complain, oh, this is going to be bad for ratings, but for basketball, this is going to be a very, very good aesthetically pleasing brand of finals to watch.
Agreed.
And all the conspiracies about the script, it's all out the window. According to the script, it's supposed to be Lakers Celtics.
Man, I said it last week. I was like, I feel like the NBA is going to give one of the darling teams it, but it's not going to be both of them. And I was like, it'd be pretty weird for the NBA to do Nuggets Heat, and then they did it. I think they're listening to the show. I think I caught on to them, and they're like, oh, we had to change it. We had to change it.
Right.
I like it.
Now I said the NBA wouldn't do Nuggets Heat because that would just be too weird, and they were like, let's think outside the box and do that one this time.
Right. Which, I mean, if you're an NBA fan and you look at it, I mean, you get the whole South Beach, so all the media people love being in South Beach in June, so they get that, they're happy. With Denver, yes, the media's got to suffer through the thin air for a few games, but you get to see two-time MVP Jokic, maybe some casual fans who maybe don't watch a lot of Nuggets basketball.
They're going to get a good awakening.
Stage, and they're going to really appreciate the talent of Jokic. A guy can't jump over a chair, probably couldn't outrun most people, but he finds ways to get triple doubles, and you're just like, how does this guy do it?
He can't jump over a juice box. I mean, let's be real.
I mean, I gave him too much credit with the chair, yeah.
And also, to be fair, Denver is a really cool city. It's a really cool place, regardless of the season. It's lots of cool things to do there. But yeah, this is, as far as basketball goes, of the four teams that were in the conference finals, if you want just what's going to be the best brand to watch, regardless of teams, this is the matchup you would want if you're just wanting to see good basketball.
Right.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm very interested because, like, as much as we think the Nuggets could take over, like the Heat could just be like, this is what we do still, and just Jimmy Butler could go nuclear. Like, this is going to be very interesting. I'm very intrigued by what's all going to happen this finals.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and talk about Heat Celtics, because the Celtics find themselves similar position to the Lakers. You're down 3-0. Now, difference is Game 4 for the Celtics is on the road, whereas the Lakers had it at home. But it's win or go home at this point. So I guess the first question is going to be, do you give the Celtics any chance to do what the Lakers couldn't do last night and force a Game 5?
Do I give them a chance? Yeah, because I can't say it's 100% thing. Thanks, David. But like, if I'm going to bet on it, like, I'm not going to bet that the Celtics are going to do it. And it's not because they're down 3-0. And when you're down 3-0, it's just so much harder to win one game, even on the road. It's how they lost in Game 3, because I watched the game and they kind of stayed in it in the second quarter. I think at halftime they were down 15. And it's one of those games where it's like, okay, you've been down 18, down 20. You clawed back into it. You make your adjustments. You cut halfway through the third quarter, if you're down to a 7 or 6 point deficit, you're right back in it. And you have to win. If you win Game 3, you still could kind of steal the momentum. You win Game 4, and then the series is back. You have home court again. So it felt like everything was on, all the pressure was on the Boston Celtics. And in the third quarter, it looked like they just quit. And I hate to say that about any professional athlete, because what they do is so hard, both mentally and physically. But it looked like they quit. And if announcers who are very careful about criticizing players are saying that they're quitting, and other players are saying that they're quitting that are watching it live, like, they quit. And it's the kind of game, the best way to put it, watching that game, it looked like a first round series, which was like a 2-7 or a 3-6 matchup. And they're like, we're outmatched. We don't have the dudes to go up against them. Our roster isn't good enough, and we just want to go home. Like, we made the playoffs cool. It wasn't a conference finals game, and I don't think they're going to win. I think Miami is too determined. They want to end this in Miami and not have to drag this out. But yeah, could they? Sure. But if they win game 4, they're not going to win game 5. This team just looks defeated, both mentally and physically.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I mean, overall, it was wild to see this happening because you expected the Celtics to put a lot more of a fight, but they just look like defeated. It's crazy how what the Heat has done, like just throughout this whole entire playoffs. Like I was listening to like ESPN at work the other day. It was just playing on one of the TVs, and like Windhorst said like the Heat was like the 27th, 28th like best three-pointing team, shooting team in like the NBA, and then like in the playoffs they're the first. And if they kept that percentage through the regular season, they would have been first in the regular season too. And it's just wild, just the offensive turnover and just overall just production turnover this Heat's team has, and then just overall they're just mentally breaking people. Like I've just see Jimmy Butler just toying with them, just yelling, talking, screaming, and the Celtics just have no answer for anybody there. Like Duncan Robinson's catching alley oops. Like what is going on? Like you're getting defeated by the Heat. Like they're not even playing basketball. They're treating it like it's kind of like it's like a fun, regular season rec game. They're just having fun with it, and then they're letting everyone know. So this team's dangerous. I mean, it sucks being the Celtics, having the big aspirations of last year, making the finals, and then being the second seed, being one of the juggernauts in this league, and then being the team that still loses to the 8 seed. Granted, there's other teams that did lose to it, but overall, you were the team that could have stopped the 8 seed from making the finals, and you didn't. And it sucks being the 2 seed like that as well too. But everything happens for a reason. It's good. It's going to be a long look for the Celtics. What they need to do next year. But right now, the Heat are just having fun, and they're just being out coached, and it's just fun for them right now.
Spoelstra's a great coach. One thing I want to send to you, Kyle, and I get your opinion on your question, but also this one. How much do you think, like watching this postseason, the last postseason, how do you attribute this, like their attitude change? How much of that is based on Ime Udoka not being the head coach and the loss of him? How much do you attribute his loss to how the postseason run is going?
I don't think it's that big of a deal because with the Udoka stuff and the way Missoula was named the coach, a lot of people thought, the regular season might be a little bit bumpy because of the transition. They actually won more games in the regular season than they did the year before.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Missoula's philosophy was definitely different than Udoka because Udoka was defense, 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 where Missoula was like shooting threes and will just outscore people. So now that they've gone up against a team like Miami, who, remember these two teams faced each other last year in the conference finals as well. This Heat team looks completely different to that team last year.
They do.
And I think for the Celtics, the frustration that they're having is the Heat look like they're legitimately going to shoot this well from 3 for yet another series. And at that point, you're probably just thinking, look, obviously it's written for the Heat to win this series. I mean, I'm not going to say the Celtics have played great in this series in any way because Brown has been underwhelming. Horford can no longer hit a 3, apparently. I know the media's paid a lot of attention to Tatum. Tatum and Butler are averaging literally the same amount of points this series. So even though Butler, it may look better when Butler's doing it, but he and Tatum, you could say, are a wash. I keep telling people, like, the problem is the Heat secondary players to Butler have outperformed the Celtics group by a wide margin. And that's what it's boiled down to. I don't even care about the Missoula-Spoelstra matchup because, look, Missoula's not going to outcoach Spoelstra. I knew that. The Celtics knew that. But you can't have a series where Jaylen Brown's getting outplayed by Caleb Martin, Gabe
Yeah.
Vincent. You're not going to
Agreed.
win that series. You're
Nope.
just not. So if Brown shows up tonight like he did against the Hawks, they have a shot tonight. If not, it'll end in a sweep, and we'll have 2 conference final sweeps, which
Never happened
I
before.
guess that script got thrown in the trash and we didn't know about it. But I just want to catch up really quickly. Juan said Warriors in 4 next year, though. What up, y'all? What's going on, Juan? David said, I gave up on the Celtics after the Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett days. I mean, yeah, it's your choice. I've been with them since then, but those are great days. Back when Rondo's kind of psycho stuff wasn't too bad. Oh, David said, hey, Juan. Probably didn't need to post that one, but it's good to see the chat getting along. But I guess really quickly looking at the Lakers and the Celtics, who are the 2 big brands out of the 4 here, have some questions in the offseason. So quickly, buy or sell on potential free agents, whether you think they return or they need to move on. So I think we'll start with Austin Reeves. You're buying on him back with the Lakers, or you sell him that he's go somewhere else.
I mean, I would buy going back to the Lakers. I mean, you obviously fit well into what they're at least doing there. They're using you in a way where you are actually able to shine as an offensive talent. There's no guarantee that a team will use you in that specific way or use you in a way to succeed. The Lakers kind of have, like I said, their offense set up not so much around Austin Reeves, but they do have it set around what Austin Reeves can do in specific situations with his skill set. And I feel like a lot of other rosters could maybe not utilize him that well. It's a team that believed in him like he was an undrafted rookie. The Lakers gave him a trial, ended up giving him a contract, and now give him this big opportunity to be the star and get the opportunity for the money he has now. Of course, that also goes to him being able to, shine in that opportunity. But I think overall, I think you should stay. I mean, you have a great opportunity there. I imagine LeBron staying, who's a better mentor in the NBA right now than probably LeBron James. You learn from one of the greatest, or one of the greater basketball minds in the NBA. It's just a good opportunity. They'll still give you great money. Some teams might overpay on you, but they could put you in a worse situation, where with the Lakers, they're probably always going to be a piece away or be right there for potential championship contention if LeBron can stay at a consistent level. It's LA. It's your biggest market probably as well too. You don't necessarily have to take a 3-year deal, but you can work something out to where you have a good player option or something along those lines. But I think you should stay for now and kind of see the direction of the team, at least after next year.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the Lakers want to keep Austin Reeves. I did a quick look. His situation with the Lakers being a free agent is tough because the Lakers don't have his bird rights because they only signed him for 2 years. So they can only really offer him, I think I read somewhere, like 4 years, $51 million. So that can make it tough where Reeves could get a bigger offer from someone because he played really well. He kind of played, and I hate to take the comparison because both dudes are white, but he kind of reminded me of Gordon Hayward before all the injuries happened. Like a very similar play style, can handle the ball, shoot, pass, little bigger guy. But the Lakers should do everything they can to keep him because I think he fit in really, really well with the squad.
Okay. Yeah, I think they should buy on Austin Reeves for sure. Next player? Well, actually, before I get into that, David put in here, wow, I'm so amazed by Jimmy Butler's journey. He went from being homeless at 13, made the NBA, but barely played as a rookie, and look at him now. And I'll say,
pretty cool.
Jimmy Butler's one of the few people in Miami I don't have any beef with. Other people on that team can't stand him. Jimmy Butler, I'm cool with Jimmy Butler.
It's hard to hate him.
Yeah.
You can't hate on him.
And he has a little petty in him.
I kind of like it. I kind of like it, though, I'll be honest. Yeah. That timeout gesture to Horford,
yeah, I didn't have a problem with that.
I like that. That was pretty good.
Aaron Rodgers, petty, can't stand Jimmy Butler. I'm good with it. Next player, Grant Williams, buy or sell.
I mean, he hasn't been anything to a point where he's been exceptional to be where you need to give him this big contract extension because of his great playoff work. I feel like I'm not sure if Celtics fans are big fans of him. I know a couple of Celtics fans outside of you, and they're not really too sold on Grant Williams. I mean, of course, he had that big moment with Jimmy Butler, which kind of, kicked up things for the Heat, not in a good way for Celtics fans. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like he's a good piece. There is things he does right. I feel like he's a good fundamental basketball player. But again, it just depends on how much money he wants. If he wants some lucrative offer, I feel like the Celtics could look at that and be like, maybe we could use that for two other pieces to get something, or maybe look at it as a veteran spot or whatever they might. But it just depends. There could be a team that would offer him a lot more money thinking he has a valuable skill set for him. So I think it just depends on what he gets. And, I think it just depends.
I'm going to sell. I think Boston's going to need to have a pretty decent shakeup based off of, making the conference finals is great, but to lose in this fashion is not where you want to be. And I think Grant Williams, I don't watch a ton of Celtics basketball, but nothing stands out to me. Things that I've heard is that he's, I don't know, not exactly the best. I'm not sure if it's him or Rob Williams. I always get them mixed up as far as one of them has bad injury luck and seems to get hurt a lot. So maybe
That's
Kyle,
Rob.
that's Rob. Okay.
Mhm.
But I think they're going to move on from him. I think they're going to find better ways. They need to find ways to improve this roster, and I think they can move on from Grant Williams there. What are your thoughts with him as a Celtics fan? I'm curious about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the price tag's definitely going to be a big issue, because there was a report that he and his agent are looking for like $20 million a year, which I'm like, good luck getting that anywhere.
Can't do it.
But it's kind of hard for me to place was he like 6'6", undersized power forward.
Mm-hmm.
He works against certain teams, other ones you can't play him. Like against a Bam Adebayo who's really long and athletic, he'd struggle in that series. You could put him out there against an Embiid for the physicality down low, but Embiid would still like score over him. But at least Williams would make it a little tougher on him. So I think it's going to be tricky to see how they value that. I think Grant Williams, though, is probably gone.
Was Grant Williams the one that went off against Milwaukee last year in the
Yes.
second round? Okay.
Yep.
So he can't have those moments, but
he didn't really do much of that this year. So that was the problem.
Yep.
Next person. How about Joe Mazzulla? Buy or sell him coming back as the coach next year?
I feel like you got to give him at least another year. Let's not forget that he did give you a really good regular season record. I mean, the Celtics team was looked at as one of the favorites. I mean, even over the Bucks being the second seed to win the finals. I feel like you got to give him a lot of credit. It's rough. It's rough. You probably maybe get swept maybe in 5, but overall, I feel like you have to give him another opportunity. Kind of let him have an off season, without, again, a media cloud. He kind of got put into the situation kind of necessarily on the spot. But, this time he'll actually have a proper off season to plan what he wants to do with the team, what he needs to work on, and where he can go from here. It's kind of been in his control. I think you give him another year, and if you come up with the same results where he's falling short in the conference finals, the team has a lack of success or whatever, and then you can look on to someone else. But I think now, give him another opportunity. This was his first year in a situation that probably wasn't ideally how you would like to handle a team. Granted, he got a good team to inherit. Overall, it's still not a great situation. You'd like to probably go into it like on your own terms when you're prepared and ready.
Yeah. If I'm the general manager of the Celtics, I'm going to keep him for another year. I think it's really hard because he didn't have a full offseason with the team. Also, Will Hardy left for the Utah Jazz. So, I mean, that there was a lot of change within the coaching staff for this team that came very suddenly. So I feel like you have to give him a full offseason and kind of retool this roster a little bit. But would I be surprised if he's fired? Absolutely not. I would not be surprised if Boston Brass looked at it and they said, look, we have to pay Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum combined. It's like $600+ million over the life of the contract. We have to find a coach that really can make it work. And we can't just waste another year seeing. I could see them doing that. Would I do that? Probably not. I don't think he's a great coach, but I don't think he's a bad coach either. I think his adjustments, I would want to see more adjustments. But again, like you said earlier, Kyle, it's unfair to judge him as far as coaching goes in this series because Spoelstra, I mean, it's hard to say who's the best coach in the league, but Spoelstra is easily one of the top 5 coaches in the league and is one of the best at in-game adjustments. And so to have that direct comparison isn't really fair to Missoula because not only is Spoelstra better, but he's also been doing the head coaching gig for like 13 years now. So I wouldn't fire him, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if he ended up getting fired.
Yeah, I definitely think. Well, it's also good you brought up Will Hardy leaving because Damon Stoudemire also left his staff to go become the head coach.
I forgot about that. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was a big loss on the bench as well because Damon Stoudemire, former player, I think a lot of the players really like Damon Stoudemire. So I think that was a big loss on the coaching staff as well. I do think there's going to be a lot of pressure to replace Missoula because looking at the Milwaukee job, seems like they're zeroing in on Nick Nurse. It's between Nick Nurse, Kenny Atkinson, and Adrian Griffin. I'm assuming Nick Nurse wins that job. If you're going to tell me there's questions about Missoula and a guy like Monty Williams is sitting out there, I could see Brad Stevens or whoever's decision is going to be really thinking long and hard about if we move out Missoula, if we bring in Monty Williams, maybe that fixes the issues that we have.
That's an upgraded head coach, absolutely.
Yeah, so we'll have to see if a lot of those guys get plucked for other jobs. Then maybe they keep Missoula only because of the alternative might be another unproven guy like an Adrian Griffin or something like that. So that would definitely benefit Missoula. But if Monty Williams is out there, it might be tough because I'm a big Monty Williams guy as well. But I
love Williams. He's great, and it's a tough thing because this roster, you have to worry about how many more years can we keep this roster as it is constructed. How many more years of good Al Horford do we have left? Because he's had some fantastic moments, and if you have a chance to get a home run coach, sometimes you have to suck it up and fire the coach when he maybe didn't deserve it. I think the Chargers should, like an example is the Chargers should have fired their coach and gone after Sean Payton because that's a dream matchup in the NFL to get a head coach that could really benefit with Justin Herbert. Sometimes you have to make that difficult decision. So I wouldn't be surprised, but it's like for coaches, it's just a raw deal. Like there's never a good firing or a fair firing for a lot of these coaches. There's so many of them that are raw deals. I mean, there's a stat that like the past, I think 5 or 6 coaches that had the best records that season are all gone off of their teams. It's just the NFL coaching is ruthless, and so you can't be surprised by anything. And if Monty Williams wants to go to Boston, that's really hard to say no to if you're a Boston fan.
Right. That's also another good point about the coaching because, I mean, didn't Dwayne Casey literally get fired the year after winning Coach of the Year?
Coach of the Year, the same year. Yep, he won Coach of the Year and got fired. Yep.
Anything can happen with these coaches. Sajin said, good stream. Thanks, guys. Hey, Sajin, appreciate the comment.
Yep, thank you.
We try every week. All right, so now, well, actually, there was another couple of free agents. So for the Lakers, buy or sell Rui Hachimura?
I'm buying. You buy. Yeah, I feel like you buy. I mean, necessarily, I don't think he has a super big value, but I feel like he has a big value on the Lakers. A lot of Lakers fans seem like they're kind of behind Rui Hachimura. He did really good, a lot better than he did with the Wizards. I feel like you kind of have a connection going there. You know, Darvin Ham obviously seems to know how to use him a little bit. He seems like a good piece. He seems like he likes playing there. I would keep him. You know, he's probably going to ask for a lot of money, but I think he won't probably ask for anything too outrageous, and you should be able to sign him. You know, I feel like your priority should be him and Austin Reeves, and I feel like they'll get those deals done.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like Reeves and Rui are the people you have to go for. Rui, he's a good player. Like, he was a top draft pick with Washington. He's going to live up to that kind of a hype. I think he was a top 10 pick. Probably, like, I don't see that happening, but he's a big dude. He can shoot the three, he can do a lot of really good things, and there's good chemistry for the identity that the Lakers want to have is tough, gritty, hardworking players, and he fits that mold. And I think you have to bring him back 100%. His career made a complete 180 compared to what he was seeing in Washington.
Right. Yes. Trying to see if there was anybody else. I mean, I did mention D'Lo before, but I guess we'll end on D'Lo. Buy or sell?
I'm selling. I've never been a D'Lo fan. I've
Yeah,
never been a fan.
I really don't know what you do with D'Lo. I mean, it sucks that you're having all the issues you're having with him. If you can get him on a cheaper deal or a contract to where it's like, a 1 year and a team option, 1 year and a player option, something cheaper along those lines, then I feel like it's okay. But all in all, like, man, he didn't do too horrible in the playoffs, but you don't want, well, not in the playoffs, the regular season, but you can't have someone playing like that in the playoffs, especially when
Nope.
you're relying on your star players to stay healthy, which they did in LeBron and AD. That means you kind of have to do your part then as well. And he just crapped the bed in the playoffs. And if they can get him on a decent deal, I would say buy and give him some time as well, because trade deadline deals are always weird for me because you don't get a proper time to actually work out and prepare yourself for the season. So if you can get him on a decent deal, do that. But if he's asking for a lot of money, then like you're probably gonna have to cut your losses.
Yeah, I agree. He for me, I've never seen him as a winning player. Whenever he has, when he had good stats, it always felt like he was a good stat, bad team guy.
Mhm.
And if he wants a lot of money, you can't bring him back. And it's unfortunate that he was a big part, a big centerpiece of the Russell Westbrook trade, and it hasn't panned out. But it's just the Lakers needed him to be a lot better than what he was and a lot better than what he's capable of doing in the postseason. So you need to move on and try and find a different player for that roster, different way to patch up that roster without D'Lo.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've heard like Stephen A. talk about it, and he said like this performance has cost D'Lo a lot of money, and I definitely agree with that.
Yep.
But I don't know. They probably might convince themselves in bringing him back only because maybe they think off season, maybe he does better. We're gonna need probably another scorer because we saw,
Mm-hmm.
you know, with LeBron going for 40 last night, but 31 in the first half. They couldn't really get that second guy in the second half, and maybe they buy into D'Angelo Russell for like one more year. But yeah, I think they kind of move on from him. I
Mm-hmm.
think he might be a guy who ends up waiting a little bit in free agency to sign somewhere because we've seen this now in a few places where he's not the most dependable guy. He's very streaky, and when he's cold, he's unplayable. When he's hot, you live with a terrible defense because he can keep you in the ball game with his offense, but he's way too inconsistent for me. Jeremy says, "Good evening, guys. What's going on,
Good
Jeremy?
evening.
Appreciate you tuning in." Now, David, I do see your question. I'm going to save that for after the player ref game because, to be honest with you, in terms of boxers, I don't know a lot of them. I feel like Dylan will probably kill it on that question. So,
Yep.
Maybe.
He-
Boxing. I'm getting into the boxing realm. More,
okay.
more in the MMA area, but I'm getting into boxing. I'm getting there.
Well, David, we'll,
Yeah,
we'll
I don't
put your
follow
question up
boxing
at the
either.
end, and we'll
Yep.
see where it goes. Uh, the last thing I have before the player guess is we've also heard reportedly that Portland is openly shopping the third pick. I've seen a couple of rumors already, but apparently it's all centered around Carl Anthony Towns. I've seen like the third pick and Anthony Simons to get Carl Anthony Towns, or the third pick and whatever player X it takes. Do you think Carl Anthony Towns would make Damian Lillard happy in Portland and improve that team enough that they become a playoff team next year if they were to make that move?
Man, it depends on what it all takes to give up. If it's centered around that third pick in Towns, I mean, I'm not sure how much extra is going to be giving up. I mean, I feel like if you're,
Like I
if
said,
you're,
Anthony Simons is the name I've been hearing thrown around with it as well.
He's a decent
yeah,
player too.
it's rough because Simons is a young piece. You are going into, you're hoping you're going to win now. I mean, you
Mhm.
still have Grant on that roster, regardless if you re-sign him or not. You'd have to trade Nurkic. I would imagine he's a big caps piece. I am not sure I'd like a backcourt or even one of Nurkic playing off the bench. I feel like you would have to try to move him to get some wing defenders, some scorers outside of that, or even some depth, because there's not a world where I think that works. Maybe he is also a part of the trade to make some of the money work. Um, Overall, I'm interested in it. I feel like, you know, it just depends on what Charlotte does at 2 as well. It depends if, Minnesota has a guy they like at 3, if it's Brandon Miller, or if Scoot falls to 3, Hornets shock us. Then that could really depend, because this is a Timberwolves team post D'Lo. They still have Mike Conley on the team, but if Scooter Henderson falls to 3, that could entice him. But even Brandon Miller could entice him enough to move on from Karl Anthony Towns. It's been kind of known that they would like the Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert spacing in favor of Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns. And I mean, I'm not against that idea. It seems like Karl Anthony Towns has kind of needed a change of scenery for a little bit. It just depends on what they really want and what it's really going to be centered around, because I'm open to the idea. I'm down to give Damian Lillard a star, but Karl Anthony Towns hasn't been really playing at a star level lately, so I'm not sure if it makes too big of a difference. There's a lot of other things you have to do if you get Karl Anthony Towns on that roster, and even then, I'm not sure if it's going to be available enough to win in the West. Maybe you could make a run if you were in the East, but you're in the West, which is a hard place to win.
Yeah. I don't think. Oh, sorry. I don't think this would make a serious impact for Portland, and it's more like I've just never been a huge Karl Anthony Towns guy. I've always figured he's a good stat bad team guy, and I know part of that's the Timberwolves aren't a great franchise. He got drafted to a team that just can't seem to make right decisions, can't get out of their own way. But when I think of Karl Anthony Towns, I think of a guy that's good on a fantasy basketball team that can look good as far as that goes. But when it comes to winning, it feels like he just can't get it done. Last year in the postseason, he made a lot of. It felt like he had low basketball IQ with a lot of decisions he made in their playoff series. I think I was against Memphis. Didn't really go up to shine. Whenever he's been in the playoffs, he's always fallen short, always disappointed. And I just don't think he's a winning player. You have to worry about the defense if you have Dame at the 1 and Cat at the 5. I think Portland should go after a better start, or maybe just trade Dame and get a package there and try and rebuild around the younger core. Because the other problem is if you get Cat, you have to do something with Nurkic, and there's not a lot of teams that want Nurkic. He's not a great player. He's on a big contract. He has a big, long injury history. Like no one's out there clamoring for him, so you might have to give up an asset to move off of that contract, because you can't have Nurkic's big contract and Cat's big contract at your 5. Like that's not going to be very, very smart, especially with Dame making as much ridiculous money as he's making. So I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's a smart move for Portland to do. Would I be surprised? No, because I think both teams, it kind of fits their MO for what they're trying to do. Minnesota made a big mistake last year when they traded for Rudy Gobert. Like that was a terrible trade. And Portland just seems to not ever seem to do the right thing for Dame. They can't do right by him. So I could totally see it happen. But if I'm a Portland fan, which a lot of my friends are, because I grew up in Portland, I wouldn't want to see Cat in Portland. I would want to see someone that can offer a little bit more and that's going to be more successful in the playoffs and a little tougher than what Cat is.
Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah, I agree. Jeremy put, what happened between the Lakers versus Nuggets? The Nuggets play better defense and have a more well-rounded team. They took out everyone but LeBron and AD, shut the rest of the team down. Lakers can't win. We talked about this earlier. We all agreed that the Nuggets got more production from more guys than necessarily like Memphis did against the Lakers or Golden State did against the Lakers, and that was the big reason why the Nuggets did win. So yes, we agree with you there. All right, so now coming up on the 2-hour mark, I say we go ahead and do the player guess, and let's see if I can stump you with any of these 3 guys.
I'm excited.
I think this first one, I think you guys got this one. Hold on, I'm gonna bring this back up. All right, so let me know when you can see it. There we go. Who is this player? They start off 99-2000 with the Hornets, then moved to New Orleans with the team in 0203. Traded to the Warriors in 0405. Then the Clippers 0809. And Cleveland 10-11 and ended their career in 11-12 with the Knicks. Who is this player? In chat, if you have guesses, you can throw those out as well. Assuming you're not looking it up right now.
I have a couple players in mind. Baron Davis?
It is Baron Davis, yeah.
Nice.
Is it? Oh, wow. Okay, so I saw the Golden State, but I wasn't 100% sure if I couldn't remember Charlotte, and then I remembered Charlotte, but that Clippers stint. Oh, I guess he did play with the Clippers. I
Yep,
know
he
he played.
did.
I thought he played longer with the Knicks for
Me-
some reason than
I thought he
just a
played
year.
longer with the Clippers. That's what got me. Is I remember being with the Clippers a lot longer.
I'm surprised I got that. Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
I took a shot in the dark.
Hornets was headband Baron Davis. Golden State was the We Believe team.
Yep.
And
Well,
then,
yeah, I was researching because that Golden State team was like one of the 8 seeds to upset, that
Mhm.
that Mavs team, and
Yep.
I was looking at that, so that's what made me think about it.
Okay. Well, you got player 1. So now we'll
Nice.
move on to player number 2. Let's see if you can figure this one out. So, 2000, 2001 with the Nets. You got the Spurs 01-02, then to the Hawks in 03-04, the Pacers 04-05, Golden State 06-07, Charlotte 09-10, Milwaukee 11-12. Then midseason went to the Spurs 11-12, ended their career 13-14 with the Clippers.
This is a good one. Let's see.
His career with the New Jersey Nets out of
Yep.
all teams. Man,
This is a tough one. This is a good one because he's small forward. Mostly had 20 points at the Warriors in 09. I think I might be stumped on this one.
While you're
9,
thinking,
11, 12.
shout out David's comment here. Can't believe Karl Anthony Towns is worth $31 million right now and is the 23rd best paid NBA player. He's the 12th best paid forward this year. Hey man, some of these NBA contracts.
So he had
Doesn't make
two.
sense.
He had
It's all
2
about
stints
timing.
with the Kings.
Kings.
That
No,
SAS?
Spurs.
Spurs. Whoops.
Yes.
Oh, he had 2 stints with the Spurs.
Mm-hmm.
Spurs, what years? 01, 02, 01, 01, 03.
I got nothing.
I don't know Spurs players like that.
They just throw money around. All right, let me see if I can give you a hint here. I mean, a couple of these stints I thought might have helped out a little bit. So I believe the Indiana stint, they were a part of the Malice at the Palace. And then the Warriors stint, they were also on the We Believe Warriors.
Oh man.
Oh,
David, you're in the chat. If you have a guess on who this player is, like I said, without looking it up, feel free to throw it out there.
man.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Okay. Let's see if there's another clue I could give you. I don't know if this helps a lot, but they are a former player that has a, let's say, pretty prominent podcast.
Is it? No, I think we've had this one before. that Matt Barnes?
It is not Matt Barnes.
I thought we've had that one before, so I thought that was kind of weird.
Yeah, man, I'm stumped. I am stumped.
Well, I'll give you initials. SJ.
Oh, Steven Jackson?
It is Steven Jackson, yes.
Oh, man.
Okay.
I forgot he was on the Gold. Oh, man, I forgot he was on the Warriors.
Yeah.
Now
That
that,
we
yeah,
believe team.
yeah. You say that.
He went to
like, oh, man.
Charlotte? He
Mhm.
did. He did.
That's why I thought May the Mouse and the Palace Pacers might help out. Because if
That
you see the
should have.
video,
That should have.
automatically think like Ron Artest, Jermaine
And-
O'Neal, Steven Jackson.
Steven Jackson.
Okay. I mean, I might have done better with player 2 than player 3, but we'll see.
You got us, man. Good work.
So player 3. So David said the same thing. Steven Jackson, I almost forgot about him. Yeah. So player 3, here we go. 2000, 2001, started with the New Jersey Nets, went to Denver in 04-05. The Clippers in 11-12, Knicks 12-13, ended their career 14-15 with Milwaukee. So Jeremy,
Is this Kmart? Is this Kenyon Martin?
Yeah, I think it's Kmart.
It's Kenyon Martin, yes.
Okay. I was about to say that. I was like thinking power forward from the Nuggets, and I was like, the only power forward I could think of the Nuggets that wasn't like with Melo was like Kenyon Martin.
Yep.
Okay. So you got 2 out of the 3.
Nice
Pretty
work
easy.
there, man. That's the first time I think you've stumped us that hard before on this game. So nice work.
Now I got another level to live up to for next week. Although at this point, I can't remember the players I picked, so they might have duplicates.
You might have duplicates.
Yeah, well, that happens.
But, you know, we'll definitely. Oh, so wait, David said, that's my son's name, Kenyon. Okay.
Oh, cool.
There you go.
Yeah. Kenyon Martin was a fun player to watch.
No, I love Kenyon Martin. He was good.
Now, I know we all said we're not really boxing fans, but I do want to bring up David's comment because, like I said, we'll talk about anything on here. So, questions, fellow boxer Gervonta Tank Davis improves to 29-0 with 27 knockouts. Who do y'all think will be his next opponent in boxing?
That's tough. I'm not sure if he'll have any mandatories or anything like that. Usually boxing's rough because I don't really know the outer workings of it. There's going to be random mandatories that won't be some of these bigger names, like probably a Shakur or a Haney or even a rematch with Garcia. I really don't know. He has his legal issues going on as well too. I'm pretty sure he's on probation for a little while and house arrest for like 60 days. So I think it's going to be a little bit until we'll see anything or an announcement for him. He'll probably get some random mandatory as like a tune-up fight and, like September, October, maybe late November. And then you might hear some rumblings when, he's able to travel and kind of be freer again. Maybe there might be some rumblings of a bigger fight again, but boxing takes forever. That's why I'm not on the boxing like bandwagon. It's because the good fights take forever. That's what I don't like about it.
So David put he wants to see Haney versus Tank. That'd be a good fight.
Yeah, I want to see all of them fight, but it's money. There's not everyone's going to get what they want, and that doesn't make people happy.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with boxing. Like UFC, I feel like I used to be bigger into UFC, slowly getting back into UFC. Boxing, it's like, yeah. I mean, remember the biggest fight was like Mayweather and Pacquiao, but it's like that fight took forever.
Yep.
I mean, by the time they fought, Pacquiao was a senator in the Philippines. Like, come on now. So, I mean, Haney versus Tank, if it happens, sure, I would probably watch it, but I'm not as in touch with boxing either.
Yep, same here.
Okay.
So I'll take your guys' word for it in the chat.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything else on the topics list, but I mean, well, I did see in their group chat they put, apparently the Blue Jays beat the Rays 20-1.
Yeah, but they did. They smacked him.
Wow. Go
So
figure.
you don't see scores like that in baseball every day.
Nope.
Man, and when you do, it's usually the Blue Jays who are doing it. Might I say they did it? Who'd we do? Didn't we do it to like the Rays like a crazy amount last year as well
They might
too?
have did to the Red Sox last year too.
I know. I think it was. I'm not sure who it was, but I know they scored like 32 runs in a game last year. So
Blue Jays, yeah, it's a tough lineup. If your pitching's not on, they will make
yeah, that roster, oh man, like if
That's
we will have our off days, but when that roster's on, like good luck, good luck.
It's scary. It's
Mhm.
scary. Also, it's a close game between Celtics and Heat. Just going over there, it's a 1-point game, 5 minutes in the second quarter. So at least they're not
Uh-oh.
quitting yet.
just holding on.
You're saying there's a
Showing that
chance.
fight. We'll see. I mean, we have seen
Anything's possible. We've seen crazier happen.
Yeah,
Anything
I
is
guess we haven't seen this,
possible.
but we've seen crazy happen.
Sure.
and if it follows my philosophy that 2023 is a weird sports year, why not have it happen for the first time in 2023?
Fair enough.
Yeah,
I don't see it, but it would fit the narrative.
It sure would. Absolutely.
So David's last comment in here before we get out of here. Haney and Shakur should fight first, then Tank should fight the winner.
I'm fine with that. I'm not sure. It seems like they're pushing more of a Haney and Shakur route first. I don't know what they're doing with Tank. It's that Ryan fight kind of messed me up because it was like this fight was kind of going to be to see who's going to be the face of boxing, and then your face of boxing kind of has a lot of legal issues after, and then kind of has to like be quiet. It's just never a good look. The boxing's paydays are huge. Those big fights will get massive pay-per-view monies and everything.
Yeah. But I think that's the thing also where I kind of fell off of boxing was like, even like the bigger names at most, you probably see them twice a year if you're lucky.
Yeah, they take forever. Like even now, for example, like the heavyweights, like none of the top tier heavyweights are fighting at all. Like we're waiting on Fury to fight. We're waiting on Wilder. What is he gonna do? We're waiting on all of them. Everyone's just kind of waiting. That's what sucks about boxing. No one makes the fights. Someone fight Francis and Ngannou if you're not gonna fight each other. Like, let me see it.
Right. Either one, Davis in the 6th round by KO. Okay. Well, if that fight happens, we will remember you, David, for saying Davis in the 6th round. And we'll see if you're right. So before we get out of here, Jake, Dylan, anything you want to add?
Nope.
Go ahead.
Great basketball, great show. So it's more to look forward to. We'll have a good idea. We very well could be starting into our finals next week, which is crazy that it's that close. But no, great show, great audience participation. Really, it's always cool to have the audience, you guys in the chat there.
Absolutely. I mean, either way, next week we will be doing finals previews, whether it's Nuggets Heat or the Celtics for whatever reason. Just hit that defibrillator, decide to wake up and made it a series. But
wild if we were back here next week and it's just like, well, the Celtics did it.
If that happens, I might have to go full Jordan mode and just hijack the whole show at Celtics talk. I wouldn't do that. But hopefully Jordan is back next week. Like I said, he did graduate today, so I'm sure he partied a little too hard. I'm just kidding. But he graduate from college. It's always a big day, so we'll let it slide this week. Just this week. So like Dylan and Jake said, thanks to all of you in the chat. Appreciate it. We definitely feed off of your vibe on this show, so always appreciate it. And you guys should know we're here every Tuesday, 7:00. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well, because there's other great shows on here, great personalities as well. David Put, great show. Y'all loved it. Thank you appreciate that. Like I said, we try every week to give you great content. So until next week, where all 4 of us should be here. But it's another Big 3 episode in the book. Have a great rest of your night. Go Celtics. I'm just throwing that out there. And we'll see you next
week. Get it out there.
All right, guys.